Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks, grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Welcome to CoCoTALK, episode 275. Today we're celebrating 30 years of NitrOS9 with special guests Alen, Dekok, Bill Nobel, and L. Curtis Boyle.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
And welcome.
Yes, and welcome. Let's see, on the panel today, we have top left, we'll start with Mark Overhoser.
Hello there. Glad to be here as usual.
And Rick Euland.
Howdy, folks.
And yours truly. And Ron Delvo.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty good. Let's see. Next row, our special guest, Bill Nobel. We have
Hello, everybody.
L. Curtis Boyle.
Hello, everyone.
Alan Dekok.
Hello.
And Ken Waters.
The middle's the Canadian panel. I just noticed
Hello.
every single one of us is Canadian.
Yeah. And on the bottom row, we have Brian Schubring, the Music Man.
Ding, 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 ding. The Music Man's on board. Hello, everybody.
Okay, and we have David Ladd, Mr. Excitement.
Oh, why, yes, I'm Mr. Excitement, and I'm hoping everybody's ready for this very interesting episode with the three NitrOS9 people. Oh, yes.
You're biased.
And scary.
What do you think, Nick?
Yeah. It's good.
Aren't you going to mention the trash can, Nick? I was expecting that.
You could say asparagus, Nick.
That's what we're talking about, isn't it? That's the whole show, right?
Is that the best part of OS9?
Well, I'll say yes, just to be funny, but in reality, no. There's a lot more than that.
Oh, looks like Brian's bringing up a couple of screens there.
Yep.
Okay.
Looks like Ultimuse's running under NitrOS9, but anyway, go on.
Cool. All right. Well, tell you what, you want to take the floor there, Curtis?
Sure. So this, to be honest, I didn't even realize this was the 30th anniversary of NitrOS9 until Bill posted about it on Facebook. And Bill, you've been kind of delving into stuff. And what made you kind of remember that it was the 30th anniversary this year, in August specifically?
Actually, it was I was chatting with Mark Siegel, actually, and I was actually thought about it, and I'm going, well, geez, this is right around the time that we actually created it. So I went back and I looked through the source code to see if I could find a specific date, and it was actually listed right in the top of KRN, or then OS9P1. The actual date of the first release was August 2nd.
Cool. Yeah, because like I said, I kind of vaguely had in the back of my head that 92 was the year we released it, because I remember seeing the copyright dates up. And then in fact, just to show a little, one of my props here
Was
is
that
one of the,
1902?
With a non-Y2K compliant clock, maybe. So this is one of the original Nitrous 9 manuals when Gale Force was still selling it. So this, I think, is the 1.15. Yeah. So this was just before Alen joined, because I think Alen started joining in around the 116, and then he kind of rapidly blasted out, 120, 121, 122, and then 122 A through N, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. It's an odd numbering scheme, but it worked at the time.
Yeah. But yeah, Bill, I think we'll let you take the floor in the beginning here, because this kind of started, I think it was April 92, and the listserv published, the guy from Japan posted the translation of the original OFM magazine from 1988 that contained all the secret stuff on the 609. And the chip had actually been out since late 85. I actually did find the official release date of it in Japan, because it was used in some of the Japanese computers as a low power one, but nobody there at the time in 85, 86, 87 knew about these either. And there's a bit of a history that we covered on the show here not too long ago about the 639 and how they discovered it. They had a couple of programs, and specifically one of them was for OS9 at the time, and one of the Japanese machines that was crashing only on the 639, and they were trying to track down what had happened. And the thing had used some undocumented commands, and it was triggering the illegal instruction trap type thing. And they started, fiddling with it, and then they started discovering, as we kind of did too, that registers would suddenly change values from an illegal opcode. Why is that happening? Type of thing. So they kind of tracked it down and figured it all out, and they published it all in 1988. And then it was translated and put on the listserv in 1992 in April. And then a lot of us were going, "Oh, this is so cool," type thing. And then Chris Burke, I don't remember exactly when in 92. It was a few months before us, I believe. He came out with Power Boost.
Yeah, it was just before P&W Fest back in 92, because actually when I met up with Wes Gale, we were actually going down to P&W Fest to talk about RIBs and FidoNet at the time, which is a BBS system, which much of you older guys like us will remember. But,
Yeah.
But actually, it was actually at that fest, Wes and I were actually starting to talk about actually doing a 6309 conversion of OS9.
Yeah.
But at
and
the
unlike
time,
Chris
Burke,
was using emulation mode, you guys were shooting for full native mode.
We were shooting for full native mode, but actually Chris had just introduced his booster project. And
Power Boost.
Yeah, Power Boost. And that's when actually Wes and I saw it for the first time. And Wes and I go, "Oh, geez, that guy, he just beat us to the punch. What the heck is going on? We got to do something about this." So we actually got out of P&W Fest and went back to Wes's place, and we actually started looking at what would need to be actually changed to actually get OS9 converted fully. And we found out it was actually basically the main module, which then was the OS9 P1, to get converted so that it would handle the interrupt processing properly and stacking of the registers, so that it would actually go into full native mode.
So if there was no 6309, there wouldn't be any Nitrous 9.
No,
probably no.
No, there would not be.
I mean, somebody else might have came up with the idea of optimizing OS9 itself, kind of like Kevin Darling and all those guys did with the level 2 version 3 upgrade, which they had basically finished, by 1990. And then, Tandy dropped the Coco, and they weren't going to possibly get paid for it. They want to do a third-party express, but Kevin would be in charge of making manuals, technical support, everything else, and he didn't want to do all that. He didn't know how well it would sell, and now the Coco was discontinued either, so they just kind of dropped the whole thing. And they had a 5-year NDA, so they couldn't do much with the code or tell too much about it. And, that project had several dozen people involved. So, I mean, for us to try to tackle it as a very small team. And actually, at this point, it wasn't an us thing. It was still you and Wes.
Yeah, at that time, it was just Wes and myself, because Alan and Curtis were not in the picture at all, because Curtis thought, well, you're never going to do this.
This is way too complicated. You're biting off more than you can chew, Bill. I remember telling you that.
Yep.
I've never been so glad to eat crow in my life. And I still remember one story we've mentioned on the show before, but for those who have not heard it before, and I don't remember what time of the year this would have been. This would have been the summer of 92, I think. But you were working on it, and I watched you kind of over your shoulder, because we worked at the same place, and you had the night shift, I had the day shift, and we were working 12-hour shifts during busy season. And you'd get it, going a little bit further to crash, because there's some other register offset somewhere you missed or something like that. But I remember you called me up at about 10 o'clock at night on a Friday.
Yeah.
And said, you got to come down here and see this. I actually got it up to the point where it boots up the full kernel track. And the kernel track's job is to do some, memory stuff. And then it runs the boot module, then loads in all of OS9 boot off of whatever device you're on. And we had a Frank Hog eliminator at the time. And you actually got it to load the full OS9 boot, and then actually tried to boot up CC3 Go to actually fire up the first start screen and, the whole bit. And he said, you actually got it running that part. Nah, way. And then I drove straight down to work at 10 at night, basically giving up sleep. Yeah. Saw it actually run and then went, holy crap, you actually did it. I was a bit more vulgar than that with my saying, but I was completely stunned that he got it. And then after that point, I was sold. Then I joined in full force right at that exact moment. But you and Wes had been doing all the work up to that point.
And the thing is, at the time of that demo to you, it got to the full shell prompt, but it's about within a minute, of course, boom, it would crash. So what the heck is going on now? It narrowed it down to the actual clock module. It missed actually the actual offsets in clock itself that actually would handle most of the interrupt switching between the processes.
Yeah, because also all the system calls were all software interrupts, which uses the same structure. So you had to make sure all that worked too. Yeah. And then the original roles, once we all got, the three of us, Wes, Gale, we were hoping Wes could be here today. He's been super busy with work. And I did send him a text this morning saying, even if he can pop by for 10, 15 minutes, because he's an integral part of it. Now, he kind of poo-pooed that when I contacted him a week and a half ago. He said, I didn't really write too much of the actual code. So I don't know, I'd probably feel out of place. And I was like, well, actually, you were... He was the one who made it a commercial project.
Yeah.
He's the one who printed on and did all the manuals and put the ads in Rainbow and shipped everything to everybody and offered it as a package, either of just the software, which came with the manuals like this, or you could buy it with a 6 through a 9. And basically, if he had not done all of that, it still would have not gotten out to anybody, to be honest. And he did the installer. And the installer back then, because we had to keep it legal with microware, was basically you had to own OS9 level 2 and you'd run this patcher program that would sit there and patch everything. Same with Power Boost did it. But because we're doing native mode changes, that meant a lot more modules had to change for us. Chris got to get away with maybe 5 to 10 on his original version of Power Boost. And it was a lot more involved for Wes to do it. And plus everybody patched their modules too. Like, I want to change my step rate of this drive. And I patched this driver to do something for my special hardware. And of course the patchers would break and all of that. So we had to have people send us all their custom drivers and patch drivers, and we'd have to figure out how to try to patch those. That was a complicated program. So, I don't think he's giving himself enough credit. That was a lot.
No, he isn't, because he actually did a lot. That installer was actually quite well done. He did a very good job on that.
Yeah. Now, Alen, I think you actually bought one of the earlier versions of NitrOS9 before you got it too, right?
If I remember correctly, yeah, it was like 115 or something was the first version I bought. Taking it home, wow, put the 6309 in, it works better. I think I don't remember the exact time frame because it has been a while ago, but I think part of that incentivized me. It was about the same time, I don't remember if it was before or after, to start working on my VDG int patches to make those smaller, and then. I believe it was August of '93. I was house sitting for some friends a bit out of the country. I was living downtown in university. My friends were out in the country, and I couldn't go anywhere and do anything for about 2 weeks. So I called Wes long distance and basically begged him for some of the source and some more of the modules. And he was a little iffy, but I was fairly persistent. And then I got all that from him, and I'm not sure I left the house much for the rest of the 2 weeks. Going out to get groceries, right? Delving into things, tearing things apart, putting them back together. And that was the start of my involvement.
Yeah, because I do remember Wes actually called me and Bill about that, because you were a part of the Coco contingent that was on Delphi a lot.
Yeah.
And Bill and I were in the older school CompuServe stuff, and basically, both were hugely expensive from Canada, but CompuServe originally had 2 extra surcharges if you're in Canada. They had Data Pack, which was an extra $9 an hour. Then there's some other surcharge thing I can't remember, which is another $5 an hour. Plus the CompuServe charge was so much; it was like $25-30 an hour. And Delphi had the same thing as it's coming through these different things as well to get to Canada. But CompuServe dropped one of those earlier than Delphi, so that's why I kind of stuck with CompuServe and never went to Delphi. So we didn't really know you because you might have been on the BBSs a bit there, but I don't think we'd really talk too much. And then Wes phoned us up and said, this guy Alen, and Wes was on both Delphi and CompuServe, so he was kind of, this guy Alen wants to have access to the source code. And my first reaction, I think Bill's too, was, I don't know this guy. Why would we give him all the source code for a commercial product? And then he sent us something that you had done, not having to do with NitrOS9, but something like an assembly language that was pretty impressive. Might have been bouncing ball demo, so I can't remember exactly. But he sent us something and went, oh, he actually does know what he's doing. So then we said, okay, yeah, sure, send it to him.
Okay. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I had done the bouncing ball demo before that using Brian White. I think the other guy's name was Matthew
Thompson.
I don't remember. Yeah, Matt Thompson. That was it. Yeah. And I had gotten permission from them to use that. I had also been uploading to Delphi some custom basic stuff I had been doing. I'd actually disassembled the entire basic ROMs and annotated them and started adding new commands and new features. I don't know that got a lot of good reception. It was a lot harder to distribute stuff at the time. And this is even when Rainbow was around. So I was uploading it to Delphi and, I never really got much feedback. I think I got feedback from Frank Hogg asking if he could sell it. And he didn't offer me money. And I went, well, perhaps not then. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different time back then.
It was a different time. And then I got into OS9 and it was okay, a little slow. And then I did the VDG int stuff. And then, got the NitrOS9 stuff. I think my first step was to disassemble OS9 P1 because I don't think I had the source for that. I had some of the source for the other things. And I just remember, looking at some of the code. Clearly it was corporate code, right? Written to do, 9 to 5 jobs, or written by someone doing a 9 to 5 job. And I went, I can fix this. Let me just tweak this and tweak this and tweak this. And that was a good 3 or 4 years of just absolutely obsessing about clock cycles and byte counts. I guess this is one thing that after having done this, I always wondered this about the OS9 upgrade that Kevin Darling and the rest of them did. They added features. None of them paid any attention to performance, so far as I could tell. It was just
they did some. I mean, like the graph drift speed up patches and stuff. They did do some speed ups, but they were mostly concerned with extra features and size. Because of course, if you could fill the system memory map. Now, the ironic thing is, I mean, he got the whole overlapping window system and stuff running, and buttons and all kinds of things that he added in vector fonts. And he did manage to keep graph driven that 8K block, which was pretty impressive, but it all went into WinDint instead, because that expanded from 7.5K to like 9.2K. So your system memory still suffered. But they did add a lot of features. But I mean, when we finally got copies of the upgrade, which Bill and I received accidentally from Frank Hogg and Bruce Eisted when we got our TC9s. Yeah, because we were going to do the second version of the keyboard drivers and the mouse drivers and everything else for that, because Bruce was getting out of it because he had another job. And basically we got undocumented parts of it, not all of it. There was some stuff still missing, but we got parts of it in there where we kind of contacted Bruce because he was our liaison contact to kind of explain what he had done in the original code, and he kind of sheepishly went, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to send you that." So and then Bill and I started disassembling that. Now we're well into NitrOS9 at this point, and running it. I mean, it had some extra features which were cool, but it was already slow, like compared to what we were used to. And then plus we'd already done all this work and trying to merge the two projects together at that point and have to figure out all what they did, because of course it was totally undocumented, just like the original OS9 source code that we disassembled was. It was like, I don't know if it's really worth it. And we were going for speed. I mean, Bill and I in particular, we were running a Coco super system at work with 8 terminals and 3 high-speed printers all on one Coco one time, plus the main Coco itself running stuff. And we wanted the speed to keep, work going as fast as possible. And that's what we concentrated on. And I think you had the same obsession we did. It was like speed. We'll throw in extra features if we can, but
speed above all else. And, speaking of multiple terminals, I think I've told the story on Facebook and other places before, but I'll tell it again here, right? Looking at some of the interrupt handling in OS9, The original interrupts took just over 2,000 clock cycles to handle. So that's an enormous amount on an 8-bit with 2 megahertz, right? So there's 2 million clock cycles a second, and 0.1% of that is one interrupt. You do 100 interrupts, and now 10% of your CPU time is just gone for nothing. So I spent a lot of time optimizing that. Minor things like using TFM rather than manual copies. The one thing that I think that made the biggest difference is originally it used the move system call to move bytes back and forth from user space to kernel space. And that worked. It wasn't really byte by byte. I think I had to fix that too. I don't remember exactly, but it was slow because it was swapping things back and forth. And so I spent a fair amount of time crunching all the interrupt trampoline code in the FE00 space. And I got just enough room that when there was a system call, I could copy the stack into FE00, swap to kernel space, copy the stack back down. And that turned out to save an enormous amount of time. And some are still in storage with all my Coco stuff. I had a little sheet of paper I wrote down, started at 2,000 clock cycles, then went to this with this patch and this patch and this patch. And I think I ended up at somewhere around 730 clock cycles, which is knocking about 65% off, which is enormous. And so I sent a copy of OS9 P1 to Alan Huffman, who was running a BBS at the time. And, he gave me a shout a little while later saying, I can no longer notice when people are on the BBS. And people on his BBS were bugging him saying, I can no longer notice when you're using the Coco. It really went from a single user machine to it doesn't really matter whether someone's on it or not. And that was, for me, the first real improvement, and getting that feedback and that, knowledge I could make that improvement made me just keep going on everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I remember at work because we were transferring files between PCs being used as terminals. We had a 386, I think.
There was a
running Windows 3.1 as a terminal on a Coco, which was awesome. But we were downloading stuff and uploading stuff back and forth. And before you did some of your patches, we'd patch the drivers a little bit. So, I mean, we'd sped it up a tiny bit. So I think we were getting like 700-800 characters per second with Y modem or Y modem batch. And after you did yours, I think we got it up to like 14,000. So we were running at 14.4 just about. Z/Z modem was one that never did run as fast. I know Gene Heskett went and patched it to, patch the CRC tables to be a table lookup rather than calculate. That did speed it up. But unfortunately, the way C on the Coco worked by default is that it would do the single character buffer at a time, which kind of like wasted all this time you'd increased. All it needed was a rewrite to do it as check how many bytes are ready in the buffer, blast it over in one shot, and it would have ran much, much faster. But modems kind of died after a while, so we never finished that project. But that was one. And then the graphics driver stuff that you did, that was I'd sped up the text screens, I think about 80% by the time you got the code, and by the time you were done, it was like 500% or something like that.
Yes. Well, and some of that, I like to take credit for the grunt work, but some of it was going to the Coco Fest. I think Chris Decker had a speed up patch where he'd hacked SCF to not copy a byte at a time between the kernel and GraphDerv, and instead buffered it all. And it was a lot faster. It's still, I think it was slightly faster than the stock OS9, but it wasn't, oh my God, faster. And it was one of these things of, I saw that and I was like, why didn't I think of that? I know what I'm doing when I'm getting home, right? So I got home, did the same thing, and the speed ups were just enormous.
Your graphics drawing code was another one I was going to bring up. In fact, we'll have a little bit of a demo, kind of duplicating a demo you did back in the day later on, but like you're redoing the line command, which was basically a whole bunch of bit masked ORing in the original one. Well, it was meant to be generic.
It's meant to be generic, right? And you look at it, and okay, clearly someone did this. They made open a book, find a line drawing routine, mask this pixel, mask the next pixel, mask the next pixel, and I'm scratching my head, going, most lines that you care about are all horizontal. And so I added a quick little check. If the line is horizontal, it would do pixel, pixel, byte, 16-bit word, byte, pixel, pixel. And I did that. And it really wasn't a lot of code, and there was enough room in Grafter to add this. And, drawing boxes on the screen went from literally pixel by pixel. You see the box go down the screen, the next box goes down the screen, to just blink, it appears on the screen. It's like, oh, that helps. And similar things for flood fill, right? It would check a pixel. Is this pixel the background color? Yes. Okay. Mask it off, repaint it. Is the pixel next to it the background color? Yes. Mask it off, repaint it. And I went, but most of the time you're doing big blocks. So I created a byte of the entire background color, and just look at the screen. Is the destination that byte? Yes. Okay, overwrite it, go to the next one. I did some back of the envelope calculations. I think in the worst case, it would be 2 or 3% slower than the old version. And in the best case, it went from pixel, pixel, pixel to bloop, bloop, you know. And that's a lot of what I was doing, is 1 or 2 instructions to check for a common case. And if the common case doesn't work, fall through to the general purpose code, but always add that special purpose code. And that special purpose code is much easier to write, much simpler. And usually, I think in the flood fill case in line drawing, it was 10 or 20 times faster.
Yeah, depending on the screen mode, I think 16 color was at least 2 to 3 times faster, and the 2 color was like literally 10.
Yeah, just enormous. I remember at the time, I initially, just to get familiar with how everything worked, what I did is I optimized GraphDerv and shrunk the code, and I got it down to about just over 4K from 8K, and then bloated it up to 8K again by adding all the new features, all the special purpose code, all the font fill, font drawing. That was all sped up massively. Lots and lots of little things here and there really added up to a much, much better user experience.
Yeah. And now, one thing you'd mentioned when we did the pre-call is that you had done a demo at your local club. I think it was something in Ottawa, Color Computer Club.
Yep. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say there's some luminaries there too, like Matt Thompson, we mentioned before, that did some drivers. He also did some of the SCSI drivers at the time.
Ken Scales did some of the SCSI drivers. Colin Mackay was behind Northern Exposure. He did all the grunt work, documentation and copying.
And testing, a lot of testing for us.
A lot of testing. Oh yeah. Yeah, he was very good about that. At one point, one of the demos I did, this is after working on it for some time, but I still hadn't really shown everything to people. And there wasn't a lot of people at the time. I was like 8 or 10 maybe. And so I wanted to show people, hey, here's the difference between stock OS9 and Nitrous 9. And so I booted OS 9, ran a little demo of scrolling text and whatever.
And pause for a second there, because this isn't the exact demo you did, but this is kind of to simulate what it was. So if you want to highlight my screen, Mark, hopefully it's shared right now. You should see 2 side-by-side screens there.
Yeah, it did it on its own.
Okay. So the one on the left here, the light blue, that's stock OS9, and the one on the right here is Nitrous 9. So this is to show an improvement of listing. Now, this is a 10K text file, and we're just listing it to the screen from a RAM drive to make it fairly equal on both. So here's the stock one. I'll get it running first, and then we'll run the Nitrous 9 version here. And you'll see it's already passed on the other one, even though I started it later. So it's definitely kicking by faster.
So show that OS 9, show the Nitrous 9 one, and everyone's like, oh, okay, that's nice. And then I started up the second part of the demo, which was drawing graphics on what they thought was the text screen. I had written a little basic 9 program. It drew boxes and circles. And that got their attention. And then I went back to the hardware text screen on NitrOS9 and listed the same text file there. And there was no difference, right? So yes, the result here was the 2-color, 640 by 200 graphic screens are faster than the old text screens, which is a massive performance improvement.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a bit of scale for people to understand the underlying drivers here. So the 640 by 192 graphic screen, which is on the right, you can see we drew a filled bar, and you saw how fast that filled. I'll show you how slow it is under stock shortly. That's a 16K graphic screen that we're drawing all the fonts, pixel. We're drawing them, each individual character. The one on the left, which is the original stock OS level 2, that's the hardware screen. It only takes 2K, and the characters are all pre-rendered. So you're just storing an A as an A and a B as a B type thing. And it was running faster, moving 8 times as much memory around than it was on the original stock. So I'll just stop share here and bring up a couple other windows here before I get on to the next part, which will kind of show what would have been other parts of Alan's demo.
Yeah. I don't remember if I ever did something similar at one of the Coco Fests. I don't think so, but that would have been interesting.
Hey, you can keep talking about it. I got to bring up a couple of things here. So.
Sure. One of the other fun things, this is related to NitrOS9, but not directly relevant as such. I was doing another demo another time, and my demo didn't work. And it was one of these realization moments of, oh, there's a bug in the code. Do I really want to, edit the code and reassemble the kernel and blah, 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 because that'll take about 10 minutes and everyone will get bored and go for coffee. So I remember sitting there going, oh, okay, let me do a dead MD here. Okay, that's where the buggy code is. Yes, the new code will fit. Type in some hex characters, enter. Okay, now my demo works, and here's my demo. And Ken and Colin were there, and they're both like, stop. What the heck did you just do? I edited the kernel while it was running by typing in the assembler. It's only like, 3 or 4 instructions. So I remember what those are. And they're just like, you got to do something else with your life. Like, but this is fun. Yeah. I was doing my physics degree at the time, actually. My degree did suffer, unfortunately. I think I spent more time on NitrOS9 than on my physics degree. But overall, it was very positive. So yeah, I'll let you go back to your.
As a typical Canadian, I'll say we're sorry. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that you modified the operating system live while it was running right in the kernel itself to fix a bug, and then just kept right on going as if nothing had happened is I don't think I even tried that.
Well, it's there's no CPU cache, right? It's not like modern CPUs. There was no issue to it, and if it crashed, I would have rebooted and tried it again, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I did use your MD thing because I would use that for testing cases. Like if I didn't want to wait for a certain condition to happen, I would just edit raw memory, and this takes the entire 2 meg into consideration. So you could add any program running the kernel, anything. And you just go like, I want to test the line on this one weird case here. So I'd go change whatever variable it was internally and then let it run and see what happened type thing. But yeah. So anyway, here, this is a bit more concerning the demo. So there's one here on the side on the left, which I'll run first, and I'll probably skip a part of it. This is the Type 5, which is the 640 by 192 graphic screen on stock OS 9 displaying text. And then we'll see the drawing that white box, how long it takes to do the exact same white box I showed you in the older one. But you can see how much slower the text is here compared to what we saw on the previous dark blue screen, which was NitrOS9 doing the same thing. So quite the speed difference. And I'll fast forward to where we do the little box draw command. You can see how slow the original box drawing routine was. And also my typing mistakes.
Yeah. Right? Like, really? You're drawing pixel by pixel. It offends me on a moral level. It works, but
yeah. But if you guys remember from the previous dark blue screen, it was pretty instantaneous, like bang, it's there type thing. And then on the right, this is the hardware text screen. So this is the part where it becomes unreadably fast. Well, I'll just let it speak for itself.
Yeah.
There.
Right.
That's a 10K text file listed out in like 5-6 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, and the box drawing there, it's, there is a very, very large difference between 10 or 20 instructions per pixel versus 2. It's just night and day. I did this not only with a kernel. There was a bunch of utilities that I would disassemble. Some would do things like system calls to print every single character on the screen, and adding a little 128 byte buffer and dumping when it was full, sped those up enormously. Remember, I also fixed the pipe manager. Pipeman, yep. It used to call, system call move for every single byte. It's like, yeah, let's just do that in a block. It's much faster. I think one of the tests I did, in fact, was if I went, list file, pipe cat, or whatever. I don't remember the OS9 equivalent anymore, but it did something like that. After about 10 or 15 loops through pipes and everything else, then NitrOS9 on the hardware text screen was about as slow as OS9. And just think of all the extra system calls it was doing under the hood just to move that data from, program to program and buffer to buffer. It was just ridiculous.
Well, like one thing we've talked about it, and probably when we did our test call here, and I think Bill will attest to this too, is that Bill and I, and mostly Bill at the beginning, but Bill and I basically, we were trying to get the code disassembled to the point where we could reassemble it, and also trying to figure out how everything worked because we didn't have a clue at the time. So, I'll give Bill more credit on that than me. I did help disassemble some of the modules, but 3/4 of it was Bill. So we were figuring it all out. And then we would optimize the existing code as it was. Like, how can I use new 639 instructions? How can I use new 639 registers to do things? And we got pretty decent speed ups above and beyond what Power Boost did, sometimes 2 to 3 times faster. But you kind of came in with a fresh perspective where you're looking at the algorithm, not the code, but the algorithm, and going, that whole idea is dumb. Let's just redo this a different way.
Yeah.
And that made the biggest speed difference. And that kind of opened my eyes, like maybe I should be looking at this kind of thing. And I started doing the same, which is where some of the EOU speed ups have happened. It's like just looking, stepping back and going, okay, the way this is being done is the problem. It's not the code itself. Well, sometimes it is too, but this whole new fresh perspective. I think Bill and I both took that to heart afterwards and did a lot of improvements.
Oh yeah, that's when it really started to change.
Yeah. Well, it really was a major obsession of my life for about 3 years. Made some money at it. I think I made enough money to pay for all my Coco hardware and trips, to the Coco fests and all this. After that, I guess I started being involved less and less. And I got out mostly when I finally got a job and had money and bought myself a 486. And I wrote a 6809 emulator, which would do cycle counting on everything it was doing. And I got it to the point where it booted BASIC. There was no graphic screens or anything, but I could watch the text screen in BASIC and see that it was putting stuff there. And my emulated Coco at the time ran at 12 megahertz. And I just went, okay, I think I'm going to spend time working on something that's a little faster. There's only so much you can optimize versus, I think Curtis was saying the other day, some of the emulators now run the 6809 at, the equivalent of hundreds of megahertz.
Yeah.
Very, very fast. So yeah, I haven't done anything with that recently. But it was a lot of fun to do. I don't even remember all the optimizations I did. I still have the source code sitting around somewhere, right? I look at it every now and then. Oh yeah, that's what that was about. But yeah, it was as much time as I had. I tore everything to pieces, found ways to put it back together better. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
Yeah. One thing I think we all learned from that, because none of us had really been involved with that before, was operating system design. Like, how do you write an operating system? How do pieces work together? Yeah. And, I had no concept of how that worked before, honestly, until we got heavily into NitrOS9.
Yeah, I had known some of the basics, but looking at NitrOS9, it really solidified a lot of it. And it really helped a lot seeing that organization. And then from there, I looked at things like the level 3 upgrade. which is really level 2.5, unfortunately. And that was a result of me running out of system memory. And Ken Scales was always complaining about this because he had all kinds of hardware hooked up to his Coco.
Yeah.
And then I had, another brainwave of, well, we don't need SCF and RBF in memory at the same time because they don't depend on each other. So I'll just put each of them in a 16K block, which is big enough for each one, and then swap them out depending on what's going on. And that worked. I think I sent Curtis the code a while ago.
Yeah, Bill's been working on it.
Yeah, I actually got that. I got that from Curtis. Yeah.
Yeah. My only complaint about it was a little bit slower than stock NitrOS9. And given that speed was my obsession, I think I handed it out to a bunch of people who are very happy with having more kernel memory. And then I never really did much else with it.
Yeah. I know Bill's been trying to like the clock modules and stuff in NitrOS9 since. Actually, I guess we should do the history a bit first. So basically, NitrOS9 started a commercial product, as done by this. I've also got an even older disk version of it from 1.07 from Gale, of course, too here. But basically, it was an installer-based thing. I had to patch the system. And then eventually, I think not too long after Alen came on, we changed the code like crazy, and it was getting harder and harder to do all these builds of trying to get the installer to work with all these different pieces of hardware and different versions of different drivers. Because now we're patching not just OS9 because people bought NitrOS9. Now we're patching NitrOS9 on NitrOS9 for people who have an older version that got an upgrade. And it was just becoming such a complicated mess. We, when Northern Exposure was selling it, I think we ended up changing it. And I can't remember who came up with the idea. It might have been Colin, might have been you or me.
I think it was Colin. Colin came up with that idea.
About basically send proof that you've bought an OS9 level 2, like, a cover page or something like that from the manual, and we'll just send you whatever hardware you've got. Here's a nice boot file already done for you, ready to go, which was much easier for them and much easier on us, to be quite frank, because then we didn't have to worry about writing the installer anymore. And then a few versions later after that, we kind of went, you know what, we've changed the code so much, this isn't really OS9 level 2 anymore. So screw it, we'll just sell it direct. And then by the time, probably about 96, 97, I think, I'd have to check back in World 6 to 8 micros, but basically everybody was going to buy NitrOS9 had it because the Coco is a shrinking market type thing, and we weren't really selling as many anymore. And we decided, let's just make it free. And I think Alen, you were the one who kind of pushed that at one point, and I don't think there was much of an argument from your Bill at that point.
No.
Yeah, and I think Boise then. I was sort of gradually.
That's when Boise came in. Yeah.
Boise came in, went, hey, no one's really done a lot with it for a while. I think I gave him all the source code I had. He rearranged quite a bit of it, put it up on SourceForge at the time, worked a bit on cross-compiling it. So using standard Linux tools to build it.
Yeah, Mamu or something. I can't remember which assembler he used, but.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, now it's LWASM that is actually the main core of the assembly behind.
But yeah, he came to me too because I had done a few patches beyond what you had. I think I was the last man standing of the original team, and I was part-time at that point because I was pretty burned out on it. So I think 2002 is the last patches I had done up to that point, and then early that year, about March or April, I sent the code for modules that I had changed since the ones you had sent him earlier, and then just kind of said, this is now an open source project. You can do with what you want.
Yeah, and he spent a fair amount of time poking at it and doing things with it. I don't know a lot of progress was made in terms of new features or speed ups, but there was a lot of reorganization and going, okay, we're not going to call it OS9 P1 anymore, as Bill was saying. Renaming a lot of things, I think, caused you a lot more problems later, Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was like
especially some of the commands themselves, not the actual main kernel, but
a lot of the commands, utilities, even some games they had hard coded, and no source available. So hard coded things trying to call T mode with the old parameter set, and nothing works, so they just crashed. And I mean that was one thing I kind of wish they hadn't done. I understand why they did it because they were trying to make it a common naming convention between OSK, which Boise and a lot of others worked with the MM1 and the TC70 and others too, so they were kind of used to that. And they want to kind of have a common approach. So I understand why they did it. But it actually, I think in the final run, it actually probably caused a few more problems than it solved. Because it didn't improve the operating system in any way, shape, or form. It just made it common naming convention. Yeah. So I've had to fix probably a dozen or so programs so far. And there's a few others I still have in the queue I have to fix yet to to get around that. But on the other hand, he did come up with the whole drive wire protocol and got the drivers running that for both disk basic and for OS9. That was huge. I mean, that
was a big.
Hats off to Boise on that one. That was an awesome thing.
So he ran that for a while. I was involved for a bit with some of the cross compiling stuff, but I didn't really do a lot with it. And I think after a couple of years that Boise pretty much gave up too. He was off onto other things. We did get some patches from other people, but it mostly just sat on SourceForge for quite a long time with no changes, no modifications. I still own the NitrOS9.org domain name, which is pointed to SourceForge. And it probably wouldn't hurt to get that fixed and put up a new website somewhere. Seeing as, getting this kind of thing hosted is a lot easier now than it was in 99, 2000.
Yeah.
And I think the whole NitrOS9 EOU really is, you guys have taken over from where it was before, and you've turned it from a pile of code sitting on SourceForge to something that people can actually use, which is very, very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Bill and I kind of talked about when we both got kind of back into it, because we'd come back into NitrOS9. Like, I kind of was watching on the periphery. I don't know if Bill was at the time, like in the 2010s. I watched like your DriveWire came out, and they did some other things too that were quite unique. And it was pretty cool. Then they backported it to 6.809. Then they backported it to level 1, so the Coco 2 could get some of the features, like a lot of stuff that I never would have done back in the day. I was 6.309 tunnel visions, what I had going. Coco 3 only, man. And so they did a lot of work on doing all that stuff too. And there was a lot of people involved. Tormod, Robert Galt, Gene Heskett.
Robert Galt was in there. Bob DeRise was in there.
Yeah, from Australia. I mean, there was a ton of people. I would like to do a follow-up NitrOS9 30th anniversary special later and actually get some of the people that did all the, the open source work on it, like Boise and some of those, come and talk about that. Because actually that part of the history, I don't know that much, because I kind of watched from afar. Yeah. So I don't know too much about what happened there.
Me too. I mean, I looked into it occasionally and went, oh, they went from 6309 to it's actually a, multi-CPU operating system with 6809 or 6309 level 1. Oh, they've actually really put a lot of work into productizing it, which is really impressive.
Yeah, and plus now that we've seen new features and speed ups on the 6809 version. And on OS9 level 1, so Coco 1 and 2 people and Dragon 3264 people are also getting the benefit of this now. So that I have to really tip my hat to them on that, because that's not something I ever would have pursued. I do now. I've actually done some driver work for level 1 and stuff here too, but I did a ton of 6809 stuff.
I'm sure they still have some comments in there. And we were talking with this on the pre-call the other day of, Alan's magic code, don't touch this.
I did touch it, sorry.
Well, that came about because Colin's Coco was one of the worst ones I've ever seen. It worked when it worked, and when it didn't, things that would work everywhere else would not work on Colin's Coco. So at one point, I tracked it down to, as best I could guess, some leftover capacitance on one of the buses. And if you did clear of FF0 something, one of those registers, the system would crash. But if you did clear a store A at FF whatever, it wouldn't crash. And so I put that in. I think someone else took it out at one point as we were sharing the code back and forth. And I put it back in with a comment of, oh God, don't touch this. It's magic. Because at one point I remember sitting there with Colin's computer, literally going boot, crashes, hit reset, crashes, hit reset. Every single crash was different. It's not like it would just lock up and stop, right? The screen would go crazy in weird ways. Every single crash was different. And I just kept hitting reset for an hour going, this is insane. Why is this happening? And I changed that code back and the system's stable. It's like, okay, that's, it is what it is.
It was a one CPU cycle difference too.
Yeah, one cycle.
Yeah.
But I remember when Colin became our main test bed, like in the mid 90s, if it didn't pass Colin's machine, even if it did run faster on everybody else's, we had to pull it back because we wanted to make sure it worked stably on everybody's Coco.
Yeah, he was sort of unlucky that way. My Coco was stable. Maybe that I put it in a new case and some aluminum plating, and maybe it got a little more thermal regulation than his did. But yeah, that was just crazy. But it was something good to learn, right?
I think Rick, you can attest to that particular anomaly.
Oh yeah, there are a whole lot of different kinds of Cocos out there.
Yeah, you've been hitting that with your Ethernet card right now. So.
Exactly. I've gone through about 7 different chip timings so far to tune it to. We're in the 90+% range now, and it's probably as good as it's going to get.
Well, I think a lot of that was the gimme, and the manufacturing tolerances there were probably pretty bad compared to anything else. Because it was a custom chip, right? For a small manufacturer.
And 2 versions of it.
Yeah. I remember, was it mine or was it Collins? I don't remember. No, I think it was my system. The 200 height graphics windows worked. The 210 didn't, but the 225 did. And Collins for that was perfectly fine. It's like, I don't even know anymore. It's just weird.
This is one of the reasons I avoid hardware like the plague, because I just don't understand it.
But I did have fun at one point. This is long before NitrOS9. I think John Kowalski, Sockmaster, came up with a little circuit that would jiggle the screen up and down. By,
the interlace video. I forgot about
the interlace
that.
video. Yeah, by half. I think it was half a scan line or something. And I put it in my Coco, right? Poke the hardware. Yep, I was definitely getting 80 by 50 text on the CM8. It was a little flickery and a little jittery. I eventually pulled it out because I had no other use for it. But it was a cute little hack.
Yeah, because you actually showed that at one of the Chicago Fests. You did a bouncing line demo at 640 by 450, I think was the resolution you were using.
I think so, yeah.
2 color and bouncing lines on super. It looked like an interlaced Amiga mode. Could you get that little bit of flicker? That was something we were actually talking about doing a driver for at some point in GraphDrib to handle that specifically, but it wasn't done by enough people to really warrant it.
Yeah. Another person from Ottawa, there was a AT adapter for a while, if anyone remembers that.
Yeah.
Keyboard AT keyboard adapter, done by a guy named Dana Peters out of Ottawa that I ran into later. He has an interesting astronomy app called Planets now, for those of you who like that. And the reason he did it is the AT adapter. He had a Coco, and he worked for a company called Mitel at the time, who is the only one who is producing an 8x8 matrix chip. And so he wired the AT adapter to the matrix chip that he could get from his work and nowhere else. And then the Coco could scan the matrix chip and it would look like a Coco keyboard. He sold a bunch of those too.
Yeah, I do remember that. Our TC9s were AT keyboard based too, so that was something we were quite familiar with.
Yeah.
That was the Papo adapter?
The which adapter?
The Papo adapter.
No, Bob Puckles was a XT keyboard.
Okay, gotcha. Understood.
The biggest difference between those two is from when Bill and I did the TC9 drivers, the XT keyboard, the lights, like the scroll lock and the caps lock and the num lock, they were toggles. You had no idea what state they're in. So if your machine crashed with num lock on and you rebooted with num lock on, the light says it's on, the computer thinks it's off. Yeah. So it was kind of like a mess anytime you had any crashes or anything. And the AT keyboard, you specifically told it, I want you on or I want you off, not flip whatever you are now. And I have no idea what that is. So that was something we really liked. In fact, Bill and I did a stupid, useless TC9 demo. We had like Starship Enterprise lights at the bottom of the screen. Blink, 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 just as you're going. Then we actually came up with useful things. Like I think we did scroll lock was your keyboard mouse on-off light or something like that, individual to each window, etc. But yeah, so if Boise or anybody else is either listening to this live or listens to this later on, I'd love to get together some of the guys that, took NitrOS9 into the 2000s. And I know there's some people, this was an international thing. This is when it became really huge. We had a lot of Canadian and American in the original versions of it, but they took it, to whole new heights and stuff and backported it all over the place, which was a huge feat in itself. Documentation, they did some of the documentation. Even the documentation I've got up for ease of use now is based on some of Boise's original ones he did in 2004 or something like that. So,
oh yeah, it's a tremendous amount of work over 30 years. As I said, I only spent 3-4 years at it, but it was a bit of an obsession for those 3-4 years. Made my mark there, and then went documentation, finishing it up. Well,
that was my biggest fault too. Was I didn't document nothing.
Yeah. I was exactly the same as you guys until I came back in 2017, and that's when I discovered that all the commands had changed, the syntaxes of all of them had changed, and I'm sitting there. I helped write this thing 20 years ago. I'm going to get right into it again. None of the stuff I knew worked. T-mode didn't work. X-mode didn't work. A whole bunch of stuff, and I was just going, "What the heck?" And then I finally found some document. Or actually, I did find documentation. Most of the documentation Boise done was based still on the original versions of the code, so none of his documentation really helped. So I just had to kind of like figure out everything, or look in mail lists when people had mentioned, "Oh, I changed how this command works," and then I understood it from the user perspective finally, that documentation is important. So that's when I've actually started doing it now, and I'm nowhere near done. It's a huge project into and of itself, but
I think the one minor documentation I did was updating Ariel and Boot to print out those little characters on the screen, and this is after endless times of it crashed. Why? And eventually print, right there. And my roommates at the time would come in and see me staring at the screen with random characters at the top going, what the heck are you doing? No, this all makes sense. Each one of these characters has meaning. But yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah, I think I expanded it a little bit later, like when it's verifying the modules. I actually had to print the whole module name just so we could tell people, oh, it's verifying these modules. You can see which one's right here and here, because I think you just had the first letter. But your brilliant piece was to put in the asterisk and then the actual error code. And if you just looked it up in the table, you could see, okay, it crashed because it got an IO error or it got a memory full error or whatever it was.
Yeah. And that really, that kind of thing really influenced me for some of the later programs I'm doing. I started up another open source project in '99 doing radius authentication for people who know stuff about ISPs. And one of my things there was document what's going on, right? As the program's running, it spits out, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And it helps mostly, but there's always people who don't read that. And one of my favorite things is, people posting error messages to the screen and, whatever it is, right? No permission to read file. Please verify it's owned by user foo. And they post it to the mailing list. What does this mean? What do I have to do to fix it? And I don't know how to write documentation to fix that problem. But I'm a lot more fanatical about documentation than I used to be. That much is very, very sure.
Yeah, I have to say I'm the same way.
So what are the plans now for Nitrous 9?
Well, version 1, this is the first version we're actually going to get out of beta, is mostly done. I've just been busy with work the last 4 weeks, so I've kind of had to pause Nitrous 9 development completely for the time being. But there's one last bug I'm still trying to figure out exactly where it is. It's either SCF or CoVGG or VTIO. That's Jim Gary found on testing some of his programs. He found a couple other bugs. I fixed all those already. This one's a little bit more obtuse. I haven't quite figured out where it's happening yet. But it's when you hit enter after doing an input, it on the 14th line of a VDG screen, for example, it'll scroll up as if it had hit the 16th line instead of doing it one early from what it should be. And from what I could tell, it's trying to pad the line of spaces after you hit enter on a readlin, and then it's padding it one too far, so it's on the next line and then drops a line, which is forcing the scroll. So I just got to figure out, is it an SCF problem? Is it a VTIO problem? Is it a CoVGG problem? So once I fix that, I've got some standard stuff. We've got some new games on there. We've got some updated programs on there. There's new fonts. There's all kinds of stuff on there. Well, that'll be the release, because basically we were trying to get it stable enough that an average Joe Blow user that has no experience in Nitrous could get it up and running, run G-Shell, launch games, do whatever they want to do, play music in MIDI like Brian does, and not have to worry about weird crashes and obtuse error messages and stuff. So I think it's stable enough now that we're going to be out of the beta phase. So this next one will have some new features, not as many as some of the previous releases. It's mostly bug fixes and cleanups, and some extra programs added in as I've gone through and tested and make sure they work okay. And it'll be out this year for sure. When depends on my work schedule.
Okay.
And as for myself, I have actually got sparked a new interest in having a multi-threading system in OS 9. And Mark Siegel was the actual one that sparked my interest in that one, because he actually mentioned on Facebook a couple weeks ago or so of someone to add the system of multi-threading. So I sat back for a couple of days and I thought about it. Well, heck yeah, NitrOS9 can do that.
Yeah.
So what I'm basically doing is actually adding an extra module type to F-string fork, so that when you actually fork a new process, it'll check the module type, and if it's actually flagged to be a thread module, it will actually first 8K of the actual 64K space the program gets will be a shared data with the actual parent.
Oh, okay.
And the threaded module will actually have a second data space to keep the stack space separate between the parent and the child.
Yeah.
So you can actually have two processes running that actually share the same data area and actually be able to run at the same time. So your second child process can actually modify code in the actual parent process and vice versa.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Of course, no utilities will use it, but I'm sure you guys will get
nothing yet, but
maybe Bill will use it on his new game he's writing. I've seen some screenshots. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, I have a couple of things to share. I wanted to share here. Feel free to talk over them if you want here, but I've got the original ad from Rainbow when Gale first advertised NitrOS9. I've also got the first NitrOS9 ad when Northern Exposure was selling it in 6 to 8 micro, so I thought I'd share those.
Sure.
Was that showing up there? Okay.
Yep.
So West Gale, of course, it's named after him, Gale Force Speed and Gale Force Enterprises in Vancouver. So I thought that was pretty cute. You know, Gale Force Speed was actually a really good play, both on his name and the purpose of NitrOS9 itself. And we called it the Expeditor because there was an old compiler on the Apple II, I think it was called Expeditor, which was a basic compiler basically, and it was to speed up BASIC drastically. So he kind of named it that. And you could see back then we sold this software only for $34.50, and then the kit, which included the 609 and a socket, for $49.50. And advertising that it actually fully runs in native mode. And of course, we had the companion piece of which we've actually gotten permission to put on the NitrOS9 distribution. So QuickGen and QuickSap are both on ease of use. QuickGen's a boot file editor that's all memory based, so it's super fast. Actually, once I started using that, I quit using EasyGen and a bunch of other ones around.
Yeah,
so it's just so much easier.
It's way easier and way better.
Yeah. EasyGen's nice if you want to use scripts. That's one thing QuickGen I don't think currently handles if you want to do some sort of scripted build. But for just doing on the fly, I have to add a RAM disk driver. I want to replace a window descriptor, so it's 40 columns or whatever it is. It's much faster. And QuickSap's a disk editor like DED that uses direct screenwriting techniques, like bypassing the OS entirely. So it's just instant blink, 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 you know, as you're going through sectors. And it's got the stack sectors and stuff like DED does. It's quite good. And it's in color. It actually uses color to kind of highlight things, built-in help and stuff. So this was the very first ad we actually did. And this, I'm trying to remember what issue of Rainbow that was from. That was October of 1992.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was just after we released it.
Yeah. And there would have been some lead time. So this is probably was submitted in September or August, I'm guessing, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm sure the ads were fairly expensive at the time.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you're Canadian, as we've discovered recently.
Yeah.
Actually, that's basically what made West kind of disappear out of, because it ended up being an advertising war.
Yeah, between Chris Burke and him. And the funny thing was they were kind of close to each other. They were both on the West Coast at the time. So it was I think as far as Chris and West was concerned, it was a friendly rival, but Rainbow definitely had a bias towards American advertisers, as we've heard from Glenn Dahlgren, and we'll be hearing from Dave Dyes here in a few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, Lonnie had his agenda, and he had no shame about pushing it and being biased one way or another. And there were people he liked and people he didn't like. And that was that pretty much, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, Bill and I were in pretty good terms because we were going to write an article on our work system on it because he sounded genuinely excited about that. Probably because it could push some of his other advertisers. Like we bought a lot of our hardware from Frank Hogg. I think the Coco 3 we got from Computer Plus, the Eliminator system, the hard drives, and possibly some other things I think we got from Frank, and then we got some stuff from Disto, and the COM4 board was from Alpha Technologies. I mean, this is the first Northern Exposure ad side by side with the OS9 users group, but you can see at the top here, OS9 level 2 color computer software, 1.20, call a write for an upgrade info or new purchase procedure, which was when we started taking cover pages from an NitrOS9 level, or sorry, an OS9 level 2 manual to prove we had it and just send you the fully built disk as opposed to running all through the patches. Price had been reduced a bit. And I don't think, did Colin end up selling it with the 609 or did he just sell the software?
No, he just sold the software.
And there's a couple other projects here that both Bill and Alan were involved with here too. So Shanghai OS9 was one that Bill originally did the port for. Alan kind of did some touch-ups stuff so it would run on more stock OS9 as well as NitrOS9. So that was the port of Rick Adams' game. And then Thexter. Now that one actually has an interesting story behind it too, because you did that earlier. And when you were going through the code, you kind of discovered this was probably written for OS9 in the first place.
Yep. It was one of these things of, I had done it originally, just tearing it apart to see if I could have fun with it. And then a lot of things like random key codes internally, things for, data structures, enumerated values, things that didn't really have to have any particular value. They were all the OS9 values. And so, my theory was either was developed for OS9 and then put on a ROM pack, or developed on OS9 and then put on a ROM pack.
And that's actually similar to Shanghai too, because when I disassembled Shanghai, I noticed, well, this is all position independent code.
Yeah.
Well, that's more of a Rick Adams thing.
Yeah.
not OS9 specific, but he always did that because he's mentioned when we interviewed him that some people purposely put in like self-modifying code. So if you ran it off a cartridge in RAM somewhere, it would try to destroy itself as copy protection. And he never liked all of that. He just said, if you want to make a backup, go ahead and make a backup. So he made all of his stuff position independent code. And he even mentioned that one of the hackers in his local group at the time in California complained that his stuff was too easy to crack because he didn't have to do anything. He'd just save it and he's done. So there's no challenge. And then you've got your Smash game. Now this is a multi-ball bust out, so it's kind of an Arconote-ish thing. You had user editable screens and stuff, but you actually wrote a sprite library to do this game.
Yeah.
And
that was my attempt to do gaming. I wasn't overly good at it. I mean, all the optimization stuff is there and works. But there was a lot of screen tearing. I was trying to get a lot of the timing right. For whatever reason at the time, I couldn't get the timing right. So there's a lot of screen tearing and other things. And I was always adequate at graphics, but not really good at them. So the game's there, it works. It's not, a work of genius, but it definitely is a game. I spent way too much time writing that game. It's not so much that I developed a lot. There were some problems which, for whatever reason, could have been more straightforward for me. And for whatever reason, either I took too long or spent too much time trying to optimize them instead of just getting the code out of the way and moving on to something else. I tried to get some FIRQ sound working under OS9. Couldn't really get that working, unfortunately, even with access to some of the NitrOS9 source. So I gave up on that. But the game is there. It's playable. The other thing I did, which was also on that screen, was Rusty. That's based on my earlier work of disassembling all of the disk basic ROMs and then realizing, I don't want to boot to disk basic and go through all my floppies to find this one game I wanted to play. I'm just going to put it all on the hard drive. And the Rusty program there would load the game into memory, play games with all the MMU mapping and everything else, start up basic and start up the game. You still had to hit reset to reboot into NitrOS9 when you were done, but it turned running a basic game from, find the game in a stack of floppies like this to it's just in my, directory on my hard drive. And I use that a lot too. And that really made a big difference.
yeah, it's really good for a casual gamer. Like if all you do is play games, you'll probably stick with, well, especially nowadays, a Coco SDC, you can have all your floppies on the same SD card, even under disk basic. But back then, if you're a hardcore gamer, you just swap floppies because all you were doing. But if you were like a Nitrous 9 guy or a casual gamer, you would just be, I'm fiddling with Nitrous 9, I'm doing some stuff. I was on a BBS. So now I feel like playing Donkey King or something like that.
Yeah.
You could just rusty Donkey King, bang, and away you went. Yeah. And actually, Rusty is actually on EOU. We've put some public domain games that are not public domain, but games that have been given permission by the authors, like Chris Latham, for stuff like Donkey King and a bunch of others that we've actually got some of the DICOM stuff. It's all on there, and you can actually launch them straight from within. Now, one other thing I want to show, this is kind of just an evolution both in speed and of graphical presentation, I guess. So Tim Linder, back in 2014, did a, how did he describe it here? Installing multi-view on a computer using OS9. And yes, it is as exciting as it sounds. And he's doing this on a floppy drive system. Now, he does eventually install the Disto Supercontroller 2 no halt, so it's a bit better. But I just want to show like people that are familiar with the OS9 multi-view as it looks now and how fast it is. I wanted to show you what we came from. Now, multi-view was a little bit late because the main window driver wasn't done at the time of release of OS9 Level 2, but like it was originally planned. So I think it actually got released in 87, probably about spring, I think, when it finally came out. Still says copyright 86 because that's when they started it, and that's when it was intended. But I'll play a little bit of a video here. Let me just get the screen share again. And I'll mute the sound because it's just Tim talking about installing stuff on floppies.
Okay. Yes, but some of us like floppies.
Only you, David.
Yeah, only David would like that.
So, I mean, I don't have a video for the current Nitrous 9, but you guys have seen it. It's got like, 3D folders. The drives are a 3D thing. The drives now do a punched in effect, like basically to press it into the screen, sort of a 3D look there. This one, actually, everything was done with fill commands, which, I mean, Alen sped them up, but because if you custom made an icon, it only had a certain pixel position it would paint from. So there were some icons designed where it would paint some little closed in area and it would just like change 2 pixels and you couldn't even tell it was highlighted, which I thought was a rather dumb design decision. So I went with the outline box instead. Now, honestly, Tim didn't pick the best colors here as a default, but
is
you can
that
see
artifacting?
What's that?
Is that composite artifacting?
Yeah, that's composite artifact. It was a screen capture back in 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Then he was putting in the high-res joystick interface to get smoother mouse, and then, but you can kind of see
that was an interesting story too. If I can interrupt there, remember there was the Tandy high-res interface, and then there was the other one with
CoCoMax 3.
CoCoMax 3, yeah. And at one point, I actually got a copy of CoCoMax 3 from someone. It's just, this guy never talked to me. This copy of CoCoMax 3 and the high-res interface showed up in the mail with a request of, please, can you fix it to use the normal high-res interface? So I did, put the patches up on Delphi. The guy in charge, I forget his name, was rather annoyed. Turns out Brian White knew him. And I got some feedback that he was rather upset at this. And so the next version came out. I got another floppy in the mail with another high-res interface from the same guy with a request to fix it. And what had been done was to basically encrypt all of the disks, so you could no longer, see the assembly there. So that was a bit of a downer. So I spent a couple of days at that, sort of, not even bother trying to decrypt it, because there was just layer after layer of decryption and copy protection. Brian White actually gave me some pointers 10 years later on how it worked, which didn't help. But what I did find by sheer accident, make no mistake, it was sheer accident. If you went to one sector on the disk and changed 1 byte from one value to another, it would still run. And the Tandy high-res interface started working. So I posted that to Delphi, and everyone was like, how did you find this? And I'm like, shotgun effect, right? Change a bunch of things. Yeah, I thought that was really fun. I never would have expected it to actually work. But the fact that it did was quite funny and certainly a good story.
Yeah, so for those watching, I mean, this is what stock multi-view looked like back in 87, 88. Running in this case with high-res mouse adapter from Tandy and also the Disto no-halt floppy controller. But you can see like the visual presentations change, the speed of drawing icons and stuff is much, much faster. And in fact, it looks like Brian Schubring's actually demoing the current version. So I'll stop sharing. And Brian, if you want to share your screen, we'll kind of show what it looks like nowadays.
All right, I can do that. Yeah, I was just playing around because I was looking at what you were having. And yeah, this is the latest version, 6.1.
Mark, if you can highlight Brian's screen.
Yeah,
there we go.
Takes me a minute. Gotta wake up, get over here to the chair.
Oh,
yeah. When I first booted it up, it had the stuff for composite. I changed it to RGB, and then
yeah, we've default. Actually, that's something I should ask the public here to maybe email me on at curtisboyle@sastel.net. I've always defaulted to composite because a lot of people were picking up Coco 3s at flea markets or on eBay, and they came with a TV or something like that, and that's all they could hook it up to. So they were all running composite. So defaulting NitrOS9 like Bill or I or Alen would normally run it for RGB, like in 80 columns and everything else, was impossible to read. They couldn't even see what they were typing half the time because it was all fringed out with artifact colors and stuff. So I've always defaulted ease of use to composite. And then it's pretty easy to go in and change. In fact, we document in the beginner's documentation if you want to change it permanently on your end to change that. Should I change that at this point? Like, is everybody starting to switch, or are we still getting enough eBay people and flea markets and Goodwills and stuff still picking them up? Well, yeah, Nick's kind of prejudiced. He hates composite. Mainly because in PAL land in Australia, their composite and RGB had the exact same color sets. You didn't have to have separate colors for it. It was always the same. And that was just an NTSC thing.
I don't see any reason why we need to change it to that. It's still a common denominator, and like I said, it's easy to change, especially with the newer control panels coming out.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I've got to get the latest version because I know he's done some fixes to it from suggestions I made for this new version 3 of control.
Yeah, that way you're covering people that might still have to be on composite.
Yeah,
right. Because if you hit a new guy with 80 and 80 columns and all he's got's a TV, he can't change it because he can't find where to click.
Yeah. And this one that Brian's showing right now, that's not the new current version of control panel. This is, I think, version 2.0 or something like that. Can't remember
I wanted the new one.
That's only out with beta testers, Brian. Just like the new Basic 09 and Run BR.
Yeah,
no, the
still
one thing
a lot
is
faster.
that I can't get the high res to work.
It should work. I've tested it here.
I'm using a standard mouse. I got that adapter to go
like a Joy switch or whatever. Or?
No, not the Joy. To go with a standard PS2 mouse. I got that adapter. And it's supposed.
Oh, you shouldn't have to do high res loads. That should be high res by default from the driver.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Depending on which one you got, I guess. Dave, is it one of David Ladd's design ones?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got it.
This is the problem we hit back in the old days. Everybody's got a different driver for the same damn piece of hardware, and we have to try to write NitrOS9 to handle it all.
Well, I know on my PS2 adapter, it plugs into the high-res adapter. Now, the other person that has the PS2 with the IBM PC joystick adapter,
Mike Rojas,
I'm not sure on that one, but
Mike.
from what it looked like, I believe it would also be required to be plugged into a high-res adapter.
To feed the high-res signal, then. It's not like the serial mice that Bill and I, Alan, did you have a serial mouse back in the day?
Oh, gosh. I don't think I did. I think I just had the normal joystick, Tandy joystick.
Yeah, because Bill and I, once we discovered how much CPU time was saved because it was interrupt-driven, not scanning constantly, oh my God, did that speed things up. So we just said, screw it, we're never going back to rigor. Of course, now I do because I don't have an R32 pack anymore. But yeah, we got a 3D look. Like if you want to close the control panel there, Brian, and just bring up like a drive or something.
Yep.
Just to show what the new icons and stuff look like, just to kind of show where that's progressed. Like NitrOS9 is not just speed up, so that definitely was the main focus. And bug fixes, et cetera, but it's also trying to like modernize it somewhat so it looks a little bit more modern and also, obviously faster for displaying. And there, for Nick's purposes,
Yeah.
there's Nick's
There's
redesigned
his
trash can.
A nice trash can.
The ongoing
Ain't
joke
on
here, Alan,
fire
because you may
either.
not be aware of this, is that Nick's always poo-pooed NitrOS9 as being too complicated for an average Joe Blow user, which is part of the reason the Ease of Use project started. But our ongoing joke is that the fact that Nick actually finally did something for NitrOS9 after poo-pooing on it for 30 years is that he redesigned the icon for the trash can. So now that's his mark.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it is a lot faster than stock OS9. That is very nice. Yeah, and that 3D effect is a lot better than that paint a random pixel somewhere at the icon. I don't know why they chose that. It was just
I don't know that either. I would have like at least XOR'd the icon so you could see it, because they had some, like, people would design like a Yahtzee game. They have a little dice with 6 circles for the 6 numbers, and the paint position was right in one of those dots. So that's the only thing that got highlighted in green. And there were some other ones I saw later on where it would literally paint 1 pixel, and if you didn't look really close, you couldn't even tell you had anything selected.
Yeah.
It's just dumb.
Yeah, that is one thing I never fixed, because I just went, I have no idea how to fix it so it's backwards compatible and looks good and people know what to do. So I just gave up.
And this is Ultimuse, which is one of the premier, I guess, OS9 NitrOS9 based programs, which is a MIDI editor sequencer that Mike Knudsen, is that the author?
Yeah,
Mike did, yeah.
And in fact, the graphics engine that he wrote, because this is all direct screen writes, this is bypassing the operating system for the most part, for the graphics screens here to keep the speed up, is the exact same engine that Bill Pierce used for his M shell, which is also included with Ease of Use, as well as Ultimuse. There's your 80 column screen. All right, thanks, Brian. Kind of show where the GUI's gone since then, as well as the speed. And we've shown the speed there earlier. Where graphic screens are running faster than hardware-based tech screens. And a lot of that speed up, some of the algorithmic speed up stuff is now back to the 609 version. So I didn't show any 609 ease of use right now, and I didn't have any videos prepared for that. But it's quite noticeably faster too, using some of the same techniques that Alen did for like flood fill and filled boxes and horizontal lines and screen scrolling and stuff is all much faster. The buffered SCF stuff's in there, so it's running 3 times faster than the original stock one did too, even without replacing the CPU. So it's a huge difference.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing which I find a bit disappointing. That I understand people do the 9 to 5, get it out the door, but there was looking at the source, there was basically no attention paid at all to any kind of performance. Which was there was always a source of disappointment for me.
Yeah, I mean, talking to some of the developers that were involved with some of that stuff, like we met Mark Hawkins at PenFest 2000, et cetera. The biggest thing that hit them was deadlines. Like Tandy had to have this in the stores before Christmas, for example. And if, like, Rogue came out with an earlier version of Grafter that still had some bugs and stuff even beyond what we got on the official release. So that was kind of like the prequel for everybody to try stuff out. And then the actual release, when it came out a couple months later, was a little bit different already at that point. Yeah. Now, one thing Tandy did not really do, unfortunately, was do software updates to a lot of this stuff. Level 1 they did. They brought out 1.00, 1.01, 2.0. They added support for 80 column cards and hard drives. And they did a fairly substantial amount of stuff there. But level 2, they basically, here's level 2, take it or leave it. The manual got updated 3 times. So they fixed a lot of problems there and added some missing stuff. And then Multiview came out, the CD development system, the RMA package. None of that stuff ever got an update from them. Basic 09 is probably the biggest disappointment for me. Now, Basic 09 was pretty tightly coded, I have to say, for 6.809. I've done lots of 6.09 optimizations, but I've kind of, once again, taken the fresh look at it, after 15 years. I have discovered places where it can be optimized, and I have been doing that. In fact, this next release is going to have Run B and Basic 9 on the 6.09 having a few choice math routines sped up about 5 to 6%, and a few other ones sped up, just a couple percent. But I mean, at least there's some progress, because basically that code has not been touched by anybody since 1980 when it was first released.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that is one of the things I disassembled and looked at and went, oh, that's actually pretty tight. If memory serves me correctly, this is, it might be wrong. Maybe someone can correct me. But the original impetus for writing OS9 was actually Basic 09.
Yep.
That Microware had been contracted, right, to write a basic. And they went, we need more than this. And yeah, for a 1980 version of Basic, it's brilliant. Make no mistake there. Don't have to put line numbers. It has structures. It's absolutely wonderful product. It's almost perfect the way it is. And then I guess, from 1980 to now is what, 40 something years. And it's that much, still hard to make it any better than what it is. I'm glad you're making progress at it.
Yeah. The 609 was pretty easy. There's some definite things there. And I'm going to be incorporating some Chris Decker's basic boost stuff, mainly his string handling. That's a bit of a complicated one because I have to change a lot of routines all at the same time to get that to work. But it'll preserve the length of a string so that if you're doing string concatenation stuff, instead of having to scan through looking for the end of a string every time, it'll just know, oh, there's 50 here, there's 70 there. Well, point, copy, done. So there's a lot of overhead on string handling to be shrunk down. But yeah, I was kind of surprised I actually did figure out, after taking a look at it after such a long break from it, that, yeah, actually I can do some 609 stuff here. Like direct page was not used as much as it could have been, which is a lot of where I'm getting speed, especially if they're in loops. So that's where some of the speed ups are happening. So expect that as part of the version 1 upgrade later this year as well.
Don't forget the other modification you did whereby you can double click on an icon to run things like the Sierra games. And
I put in native VDG screen launching into G Shell for multi-view. So you don't have these little launcher apps you have to do to kind of muck the window around and stuff. So they load a lot faster. B, they take a lot less RAM because they're not forking like 3 programs in a row. Forking a shell to run your little custom program that changes the window and then runs the program you actually wanted to run in the first place in that window type thing. And now it's just bang and out. So that saves memory and speed. And there's some other changes like the AF files have got some extensions. Like if you don't like for example, the Sierra games is a good example because they all run the Sierra program. So if you're running Leisure Suit Larry or King's Quest 3, you run Sierra. You don't run Leisure Suit Larry. You just have to be in the right directory with the right data files. So, of course, when you're in G Shell and you're in one of those folders, you have no idea which one you're looking at. It just says Sierra. And then all the little data files are talk, this, and whatever else. So I changed it so you can actually add in an optional, I think it's pipe I put on the program name. And if it detects a pipe in the line, anything past that is the name it'll display on the screen in G Shell. The actual program to run is the stuff before the pipe. Now, if you don't need to change it, like if you have Yahtzee, for example, you just leave it as it is. So it's backwards compatible too, but you can also rename it. So now I've got all the Sierra games actually called King's Quest 3, Leisure Suit Larry, Manhunter, or whatever it happens to be. So that was a nice little take. I've got a few other things I'll be adding to GHL too once I get back into it.
Okay, well, I should go. It is Saturday afternoon for me, and it's nice. My pool's calling. Have to be honest. One of the few times in the year it's warm. This has been fantastic. I will come back at some point, talk about some more. But yeah, I have been watching the CoCoTALK. They're all fantastic. Really,
would love to have you on, like to go through Smash and Texture, the Sprite library. There's a ton of stuff, your bouncing ball demos, all kinds of things. So we'll actually get some videos of all that stuff up and running so people can actually see all the stuff we're talking about too.
Okay.
Before you leave, Alen, did you have any thoughts about DeskMate?
No, I never
None at all.
used,
never used it.
None at all. I looked at it and went, I don't know why I would use this. I mean, honestly, the development processes I use now are still pretty similar to what I did under NitrOS9. Text editor, shell, scripting to build everything. I've tried using fancy IDEs and all this. And I mean, I'm on a Mac right now. So yeah, we have the whole modern windowing system. But for what I do, I'm still programming, and 99% of it is just text window, shell prompt, build stuff.
Yeah, see, from a user's perspective, I was either RS-DOS or when I used OS9, it was for games. And then when EOU started, it was like, oh, a graphical interface, not unlike DeskMate. Well, why can't DeskMate work in here? And then
I'm working on it. It's got some things that because of all the changes that happened in NitrOS9 when it became open source, it's broke now. So I have to, that's one of the other ones I have to go fix.
Because, as a guy who, I used it for my business and stuff because I could, do text. Everything's there, just like Elite software,
or VIP library or some of those other ones.
We have a question from Deke. He asked, Alan, do you have any of your old code, especially the old C code? I'm collecting for preservation. Deke is kind of our compiler guy. for OS9.
Yeah, he's the one who's doing the new DCC compiler in NitrOS9 EOU.
Curtis has all that. I sent all my disks. I still have the hard drive. There might be stuff on the hard drive, but all my floppies with everything I was working on were sent to Curtis. So he has a copy of everything.
Which I also have a copy of too.
I haven't had a chance to go through it lately. I don't remember too much C code on there though. Do you?
No,
There's not much C
did
code
mostly
on
assembly.
it.
I
It's
never
all
really
assembly.
did. Yeah, I never really did much C code until I mostly stopped working on Nitrous 9.
Yeah, you have some basic 9 little demo programs and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but mostly it's assembly.
Yeah, 'cause
Okay.
that's actually where I've got most of the actual source code that you did for level 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully there's some comments in there. I try to be pretty good about that.
The one Nitrous 9 module, that one is fully commented, and it actually helped me to actually figure out what the hell did you do in IO Man.
I remember it was weird. It was just weird. It hurt my head at the time, but it did work.
It worked, and actually, I found that those extra bytes that you used out of the data image are really we could use that a lot more.
Yeah, because you had that little hidden mini maps of where RBF block was and where the SF block was and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no more questions, thanks everyone. I'll be on soon again, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Thanks for
Thanks,
dropping by, and congrats on the 30th anniversary to all of us. I guess our fact that our project's still going today is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing that it is still going.
It's fantastic. All right, talk to you soon.
Later, Alan.
Good one.
And just as one last note on here before we get on to the regular show stuff here, I found while digging through some stuff here, I'm actually in the midst of cleaning out a bunch of old stuff in my office. And this is dated from December of 1995. This is the source code to Basic 9. Now, where Bill and I worked, we had these huge industrial line printers that could print 600 lines per minute of 132 columns. So they were lightning fast. But even this took a couple minutes to run. This is the thickness of the source code to Basic 9. The individual pages that you have to go through. Some of it commented, some of it not. And that's just one program out of the entire Nitrous 9 stack. And we had to do third-party stuff like Home Publisher and all kinds of stuff too. So the amount of work we put in, like as Alan said, we were obsessed, and that's actually quite true. We lived, breathe, and ate Nitrous 9.
Well, actually, I just pulled out this binder, which actually holds the source code for GraphDrift.
Yeah, like it's literally hundreds of pages of stuff just for certain modules, like the bigger ones for certain programs. Multiply that by dozens and dozens of programs and dozens of modules, and it has been a lot of work, but it's been a hell of a lot of fun. I will give you, if you guys want to see some Easter eggs, all the source code for everything in Nitrous 9 as it's currently built is on the Nitrous 9 distribution hard drive in the DD source directory. And if you go through some of it, you'll see snarky comments from Bill, snarky comments from me, snarky comments from Alan.
Boise, Roberts, everybody.
You can also see some comments that are utterly wrong because we were totally guessing, because we're disassembling, trying to figure out what does this code even do on the fly. And then you might come back to it 3 years later, and now I kind of understand because I disassembled this other part later on at calls. So all my original comments were completely out to lunch and wrong, but that's a lot of effort for me to retype all that in. And I kind of know in my head now is what my thought was, so I just left it. So there's actually some stuff that's wrong. I'm trying to clean those up too. But a lot of history in there. Anyway, we'll try to set up a follow-up one sometime before the end of the year, since this year is the 30th anniversary of Nitrous 9, and try to get the people that did the open source project and the backporting the 6809 and the backporting to level 1 for the Coco 1 and 2 and the Dragons here, and try to get some of those people on for a follow-up 30th anniversary special, because that's a part of the history I don't know that well either, so I'll be learning as much as you guys are.
Same here.
Is there any other questions? I actually didn't have a chat up because I have too many windows open at the moment. I didn't have room for them. Mark, did you see any? Mark Oberholzer?
No, I've been monitoring pretty closely, and then there was just that one question. And then Brian Walsh did ask where the WeFax folder is. I assume that Ron stole it. So everybody drink.
So now it's probably a good time for a commercial there. So people can, shake themselves awake after that.
All right, flip some screens here.
Wake up, Nick.
You are watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly video podcast, featuring the Tandy Color computer. We spread the love to the past, present, and future for all models, including the original color computer, the Coco 3, and the world-renowned exclusive French-Canadian Coco 2. The Radio Shack.
CoCoTALK would like to thank the patrons who sponsor our program, so our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Blair Ledoux, Boat and Aaron, Brendan Donahue, Brian Weasler, Brian Walsh, Karen Anscombe, D. Bruce Moore, Daddy Burrito, Daniel Williams, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Vebke, Grant B., Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, Jay Style, Ken Reichert, Malfunct, Melly, Michael Pitsley, Mike Rayburn, OG Hugo, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Retro Tech Time, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tim Thayer, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom Heron, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athing. Thank you ever so much, patrons.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord This Week?
Booglop says, "Hey everyone. My name is George. I am into Coco 2s and Apple 2s. I currently own one Coco 2 and in the process of acquiring another. I hope to learn more about these wonderful machines here." Barbard says, "Hi folks. I'm Don Barber. We had a Coco 1 and a Coco 3 when I was a kid, and I taught myself BASIC on the Coco 3 at 9 years old. Got back into Coco a few years ago. Active on the multimedia mailing list. Wrote github.com/barbard/cocorsa. Also soldered together an Altair 8800 and repaired a Mac Classic recently. See barbard.medium.com for details on those projects. Heard about this Discord on the CoCoTALK podcast, just hoping to connect with like-minded individuals." The previous bios were edited for time. Thanks to Boys in Tech, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Nightbeard, Glenside Computer Club and the CoCoTALK patrons for boosting the server. Please consider joining Discord and visiting the welcome section to read these bios in full and see what the community has to offer. http://discord.cocotalk.live.
See y'all on Discord.
Hi, this is Curtis Boyle, part of the CoCoTALK crew of people, and a lot of us are here down at the Coco Fest, having a great time. It's the second day, and we're just about done, so you guys have to come out next year.
Hey everybody, this is Bill Noble, co-author of NitrOS9. You are listening to CoCoTALK Live, the leading live CoCoTALK show.
Good day, mates. This is Nick Marionettes, author of such color computer titles as Donut Disaster, Rupert Rhymes, and Rockstar Pilot. And I am here today to tell you about the world's most fabulous operating system, OS9. OS9 and its current incarnation NitrOS9 is the most advanced operating system ever created. And what makes it so good? Ease of use. I find OS9 so incredibly intuitive that I haven't once cracked open the user manual. And yet I've been able to create such incredible games faster than the time it takes to sing Waltzing Matilda. Using OS9, I expect my next game, Funstar, will be done this weekend and distributed exclusively on ROM cartridge. OS9 forever.
Any resemblance to actual events to persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
Welcome everybody to this week's CoCoTALK Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we played Crash with a total of 12 players. We had Mr. Dave 6309 with a score of 0. Kieran with a score of 3,500. We had a tie for 9th place between Sabhead and Buck Owens with 6,100. Rick Yu with 6,200. Then we had a 3-way tie for 5th place with Canadian Retro Things, Jim Rye, and Mark B, all with 6,300. Sloopy Malibu, 6,500. L. Curtis Boyle, 7,300. Rich N, 7,800. And the number one score this week was Shenley with 9,800. Thanks everybody that played, and we will see you next week.
All right, so
and we're back.
Great game.
Yes, it was a wonderful game, wasn't it, Nick? As you'll hear if you watch the live stream yesterday. If you watch the live stream, you will hear some rather colorful language from a few people. Before we get into that, though, I will say that I did find one review for this in Rainbow Magazine. A fairly favorable review. The author basically just goes through what each screen is. Something I didn't know that I don't think a lot of people did. You get an additional man if you complete all 4 screens. So the game did have 4 screens. And the things falling down on the first screen were apparently venomous snails. Okay.
Okay.
Sure they were.
A little bit of creative licensing
there was quite
there.
the debate about what those were. So, yep. Snakes, missiles, what? No, they were snails.
It's cargo.
And the thing that the author of this review was a little disappointed was, or actually first, if you make it to the 4th screen, which Curtis did during the live stream last night, and he made it through, that Mario, the character, gets in his plane, flies away. Apparently he forgot to refuel and he crashes again. So not a very good pilot. And the one thing that the author was disappointed in is that apparently in the instructions that it says that speaks of flying Mario's plane through and over obstacles, but you never actually get to fly the plane. It just flies away on its own and then crashes again.
Yeah.
But as I said, mostly this was a favorable review. And so I did also find one score submitted into the Rainbow Magazine, and that was a score of 25,100, which is a very believable score from how everybody did this week.
Yeah, if you practiced enough, you could.
Yeah, if you practiced enough, you could probably get up to that. But scoring points is not easy unless it's the first screen. Because on the other 3 screens, you don't score a lot of points.
Yeah, it's a very low scoring game.
For the live stream last night that we all enjoyed so much, and apparently a lot of people also had trouble getting it running on emulators. But that was just part of the fun of playing the game.
So somebody in there, I think, had mentioned in the Game On Challenge channel on Discord that part of the challenge of the retro gaming is to actually get the game up and running. So,
yep. So that's,
now I will state one thing. I have a version of Crash. I didn't get a chance to look for it before the live stream, but my version of Crash that I had, a cracked copy of way back when on the actual, floppy disk, I didn't have to do any of this weird crap to get it to run. It was cracked properly. So it just worked.
Well,
so the version that's on the archive does have some glitches. You have to do a clear command to get it to run the Coco 3 and whatever.
I don't think anybody had problems running it on real hardware. The problem was running it on the VCC emulator.
Oh, I thought some people did have a problem with it running on real hardware, but 60 did.
I didn't.
It worked fine on my computer.
Oh, okay.
So as far as I know, it was just the emulator that people are having problems with. So
did every emulator have that problem?
I think just VCC.
Just VCC,
from what I heard. So that could be a shortcoming of VCC with just the way the disk was set up or something.
For me, anyway, VCC was happier if I used 6309 instead of the 6809.
Okay.
Yeah, 60 just said in the chat, I had problems running in real hardware, and I heard that from a couple people too. So
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't have any problems running it on real hardware, so
yeah, I know the version we had floating around back in the day had no problems on anybody's hardware, so I think it was just properly cracked.
now the game was some good points about it were that it had some originality to it. The screens that you had to go through were very original. The gameplay was original. The sound was pretty good. But the actual implementation of the playing really was awful. Everything was random. So the biggest flaw was that there was so many places in the game that you could get trapped and there's nothing you could do but die. Like you'd get trapped between two spiders and the little apparently poisonous snail would just bounce down onto your head and kill you and you couldn't move out of its way. And
the randomness of the spider movements, like normally if you were designing a game this to be fun, you would have like a spider come down and might bob a couple times and then would kind of go away and go somewhere else type thing. That's how you would design a normal game. Here, because of the randomness, that spider could stay there for 10 minutes and you could never move. So
actually, I had that in one game I was playing last night. I got trapped at a spot where I was waiting for the spider to get out of the way so I could continue on the level. And I sat there for, I would say, 3 to 4 minutes and finally just killed myself because
you got tired of waiting. And
I got tired of waiting. And it just sat there and bobbed in front of me for like 3 or 4 minutes. And that not fun.
Not good game design.
No, not good game design.
The concept was good, but
if they had done the randomness, but only partially random, like you said, if the spider would drop down in random places, but only bob 1 or 2 times and then quit, fine. But to be able to have the spider sit there and bob for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah. And then on the second screen where you have to jump over these creatures between to get to ladders, you have to maneuver your way from the top to the bottom, avoiding everything in between. There's some spiders crawling around there too. But there's other things that just go back and forth and jump over the holes themselves. Yeah. Frogs. Okay, sure. We'll call them that. That one was far too fussy on the jumping. Like you had to jump perfectly in order not to die.
Yeah.
To jump over it. And it also the monster, if it got to a hole, would jump like twice as fast. It wouldn't arch over like you do. It just bang and hit you.
I would almost guess that the person that wrote this game had a lot more knowledge of ZX Spectrum games, because that pixel perfect jumping in all of the most of the games on the ZX Spectrum are just like that it is within 1 or 2 pixels that you have to be perfect.
Well, and the collision detection was the same way. So like on the first screen, one little blue dot from a splash from one of those escargot things touches the end of your foot that kicked out because you're about to move. Yeah. So the hitbox was super, 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 super precise.
It's Australia. The snails are poisonous. The snakes are poisonous. The spiders are poisonous. The water's acidic.
Yeah, everything's trying to kill you. Yeah.
And
you might as well just take your lives and put them in a NitrOS9 trash can, because that's all Australian. Which is too bad, because I mean the game, like you mentioned, the game's original. Yeah. It's got 4 levels, so it's got a fair bit of variety. The levels are quite different from each other. The third level's super easy, actually, once you kind of figure what you have to do. Because basically you have one bird flying at you or whatever it's supposed to be, and then you have a cliff with a couple tree branches sticking out of your boat at the bottom. All you have to do is just jump off, and as long as you float past the first tree, then you hit the button to trigger your parachute, and you just float in the boat and you're done the level. Like, it's super easy. So you kind of get a break. It's almost like an intermission screen compared to the other things, but the other ones are just brutal. And the fact that you have to wait, like you said, 3 to 4 minutes, and you just gave up waiting because it's boring. I mean, you shouldn't have a game that just has you trapped in a corner. You just sit there and sit there and sit there. There's nothing you can do. You can't run, you can't jump, because you'll die. So it needed some help in the game.
Sometimes when you do get trapped, you cannot move, and something else comes at you and kills you. Yeah, like to have zero escapability when something's going to kill you is also not fun.
Yeah, especially when you can see it coming for like 20 seconds and there's nothing you can do.
sitting there between two spiders, watching the snail come down level to level to level, and boom, kills you.
Yeah. Yeah. Some minor tweaks to the game engine to make the spiders a bit more, not random, but a bit more like, not even predictable. They don't have to be predictable. They have to be like, it's only going to sit there on a row for a couple of bounces and then just go somewhere else.
Randomly have them come down like that. That's fine, but don't have them randomly stay for any amount of time bouncing up and down.
Yeah, because even a real life spider is going to get bored.
Yeah.
And leave. And they did. You know,
even an
sometimes
Australian spider would get bored of trying to wait to kill you.
Yeah. I'll go kill this other guy now instead. Yeah, it had like good sound. It had, you know, multi-voice music, little bits that had the explosion sound. The plane crash was pretty decent. The graphics, now this is a speculation a lot of us have, that he's either using basic ROM routines. I did not have a chance to disassemble it or run the MAVE debugger to see if it's true or not. But the
didn't
graphics
have the time or didn't have the inclination.
Well, both. But the graphics themselves, I mean, they're drawn fairly well. Like the shapes are well done, but they're flickery and slow. I ran at double speed. I think most of it ended up doing that on the Coco 3, just to become much more playable or much more frustrating depending on your point of view. But it looks like it was basic code or compiled basic, or it's calling, you know, get put routines in the ROMs, because it looks like that type of drawing. And it could be because the guys were just learning machine language, or maybe it was compiled. Maybe they wrote it in basic. I don't know the exact details of the history of the game, but it was a bit slow on the Coco 3 with a double speed up. It's actually not too shabby speed wise, but the gameplay itself is the greatest limiting factor to it.
Yeah,
the actual game engine.
It really could have been a really good game if the gameplay had been better.
I mean, sometimes you get a game that's just bad. The design's bad, the creativity's bad, graphics sounds bad. Like it's just a write-off. I know Aaron and them, like when they do some of the Amiga shareware and freeware games, they tend to have a lot of those. They're just actually garbage for the platform. This is not one of those. This game has a lot of potential. The ideas are there. It just needs a better execution.
Yeah. Agreed completely.
So tips or tricks? Lots of patience is the only tip.
Lots of patience. Yeah, that's the only tip or trick I can think of is lots of patience, because the fortunate thing is there's no timer. So
yeah,
you
that
could
would have been really bad if that had
yeah, you could sit there for 10 minutes waiting for your chance to go. And
yeah.
Don't forget to pick up the invisible bonuses.
Oh yeah, there's invisible bonuses.
Yeah, the first level in particular, the top two platforms, which don't have the little, what are they called? Gold bars or whatever they're supposed to be?
I think those are just supposed to be cargo crates from your plane.
Oh, okay. Because basically you drop off the rope that you throw across the chasm that you're in, and then you drop off on these little ledges to grab it, and then you jump back up. There's a couple on the top that don't have the little box to pick up. But if you drop down on them, you still get some points. So there's kind of invisible or hidden things that are actually worth more than the ones at the bottom. So yeah, they're definitely worth picking up if you're going for score.
And actually, if you're going for score, the best way to get a decent score is just to keep going to the top of the first screen, then die, and redo the first screen, die, redo the first screen, die.
Because you get way more points in the first screen than any of the others.
That's the way that my high score was on one where I just played the first screen. I made one where I made it to the fourth screen, and I had way less points than one where I kept dying
the game
on the
where
first
I finally wrapped it. I made it past the fourth screen and went back to the first screen. And the increase of difficulty, it does speed up at that point.
Yeah.
I had a lower score than my highest score. My highest score was done when I didn't even make it to the third. I only was on the second when I died. And I got a better score then. I also have a comment from 60. He says he's not convinced that Australian critters ever get bored of killing.
Well, maybe they'll just say, I can come back to you. I'll go kill this guy and then get back and kill you.
Yeah. So other than patience, and the secret bonuses, I guess the only one we kind of talked about on the third level, if you can get that far, just jump off the cliff, ahead of the bird so you don't get hit.
Yeah.
Wait till you plummet past the first tree branch, launch your parachute, you're done the level. So it's super easy. The first couple times I got up there, I didn't know that you had to wait past that first branch. So I just, this is easy. I'll just jump through the parachute on. And as soon as I got by that tree, I died. And at first I didn't even know why. And then we found the original Dragon directions instruction manual for it. And it actually says you have to go past the first branch. Otherwise you'll get hung up with a branch.
Yeah, it's interesting that the instructions actually tell you how to beat the level with no problem.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a breather almost. It's like an intermission almost.
Yeah.
By the time you got to the third level, you want to jump off a cliff.
You want to jump off a real cliff, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And it did have a pretty neat little intermission. Like when you completed the fourth level, which basically you start at the bottom, you have to go up these platforms with these things running back and forth and spiders, and then hop on your plane. And he actually does take off, and then he flies across an empty screen like he's trying to get away from this place. And then all of a sudden he plummets down and dies again. So, but it does have a little bit of intermission.
On the fourth screen, those are poisonous Australian monkeys.
And yeah, you're flying through apparently poisonous air, which kills your plane. So,
no, the instructions actually say he forgot to refuel.
Yeah.
Because he's an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a game that had potential, didn't make it through the final gate.
Yeah.
If it got rewritten with a better monster movement engine in particular, and maybe not so pixel perfect on certain things, the graphics could definitely be sped up and improved and not as flickery just from doing double buffering or something.
And maybe add something more to the third screen. Like
more
more
birds or something. Yeah. Or maybe steerable parachute where you have to try to land in the boat, but dodge the birds as you're going across, something like that. It was a bit too simple.
Yeah.
But the general idea is good. The general graphics are good, though they could be faster and better masked, etc. And the sound is good. I have no complaints about the sound.
How about for those of us that are watching that haven't seen the game, I will share the video from. I think I'll share. Wait, where did that video go? There we go. Here is the video from last night's playthrough, so you kind of have an idea of what we're talking about. So this is
go ahead.
This is the first screen that everybody is playing, and that's the screen that most of us played most of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just had to throw a rope across and then climb across it and wait for the spiders, and that thing bouncing down in some of the screens is apparently a snail.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. My best explanation for it was a spring snake, but during the live on, we did have up to 5 people playing. Live game on there, we had up to 5 people playing. So
yeah, and actually we had a brief period where we had like I think 30 viewers at once on Twitch alone because we got rated by one of the Amiga shows. And then they saw how poor this game was and they left in a hurry.
Yeah, they had to rate us when we were playing one of the worst games we've played on. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're trying to impress Amiga people, this is not one of the games to pick.
No.
That is the Cubert snake, though, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know what else to say about this game other than
you can see the second screen on the lower left there. I'm not sure he's playing that one, but I don't know. Do you know where one of the clips with the third screen and fourth screen, just so we show what the screens look like, and then I think we're done?
Okay, I will try that.
Or even the intermission when I finally beat the fourth screen, if you got that too. Because I don't think anybody else is going to play it long enough to actually get that far, so you might as well just watch it and live vicariously through me. As I swore a lot playing.
Okay, so hopefully, yeah, this is my game where I made it to the fourth screen. So there I am beating the first screen, sorry.
Yeah, it plays a little musical ditty as you complete the screen. So
yeah, so here you.
The second screen, your aim is only to get to the bottom. You cannot jump through the holes. You'll fall too far and die.
Yeah.
So you have to like jump over creatures and maneuver ladders, etc.
It's actually not that hard, except there are also spiders coming down, but they keep going down. They're not as annoying as the ones on the first screen. They don't bob up and down. They just go straight down.
Yeah, there's a lot of timing to the game, like pausing and like not trying to rush things, but
yeah. So as we said before, you definitely need a lot of patience for this game.
Yeah, it's not a game for people with high blood pressure.
It's a good way to learn Zen. Zen video game playing. And here's the third screen, which, yeah, just jump.
Wait till you pass the first branch, fire up the parachute.
And there, that was the third screen. So really very, very easy.
Yeah, it was a nice breather, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, so the parachute gets stuck on the second branch so you can take it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here is the fourth screen, which I did not beat, but there's the poisonous monkeys.
And you're playing up at the top, you're trying to reach?
Your plane's at the top there, and you're just trying to climb up to get to that.
Yeah, I don't remember how far in it is when I beat this, if you wanted to show that intermission thing. But
yeah, I'll try.
I
find
it.
it.
near the end.
Without
Yeah.
sound, it won't be really all that awesome anyway. But it was the only time I actually ever managed to win it, because I think back in the day, I can't remember. I might have beaten it, or I saw somebody beat it back in the day. I did get to the fourth level back in the day, but I was quite stunned when I actually made it past it.
So this is you
Yeah, I don't remember where.
This is what it looks like on double.
Yeah, with the double speed book. I mean, because of your bandwidth, we're kind of seeing the slideshow presentation of it, but
Yeah, sorry about that.
died again.
I don't know. Is this the one where you made it?
Yeah, it was towards the end.
Obviously not that one.
Okay, it wasn't that one. Oh, there.
your
I
last
think you're in the
game.
bottom corner there. No. No, that's just somebody letting the track screens play. No, I should have had that queued up, but
Oh,
Oh, well. You're not missing a ton, but it does have an intermission when you complete it. So
just give me two
anyway,
seconds.
if Ken can't find it, you can watch the entire 1 3/4 hour live stream.
Yeah,
And,
one of our
eventually
shorter
you'll see
live
it.
streams because we just got sick of playing the game.
Exactly true. I think all of us are ready to quit at that point.
Okay, well, I can't find it, so if anybody actually cares, maybe I'll try to find it for next week. But
nah.
Yeah.
no, okay.
So I'm almost scared to ask what you're going to burden us with next week here.
Oh, I guess I have to show you that, don't I?
Yep.
Okay, let's see. This is one that I'm pretty sure just about nobody will have played. Oops, what happened?
You're right. Nobody played that.
Ah, crap. It just shut my window down. Just give me 1 second here. Ah, wonderful computer.
Technical difficulties.
Must have been
There.
playing Crash in the background.
I think so.
Crash crashed.
What is going on here?
Well, you're running Windows. That's probably part of the problem. But
Too many
Okay.
icons.
Jim Rice
There
says no
we
one's
go.
ever played it. It's that bad. Oh yeah, you're right. This is one we just showed last week.
Yeah, this is one we just showed last week. So this one is called Lift. And it is based on the heck is the name of that game that it's based on? The one where you're a mouse and you're running through the house and you got to collect the paintings and avoid the cats.
Mouse Trap or something?
No, not Mousetrap. Anyways, the idea of the game. So just let me go back to that first screen there. Can you see that? The first screen there?
We're not seeing your screen share at all.
Oh, what happened to my screen share? God, I hate my computer. Okay. So the idea of this game is that there's little elevators going up and down there, and you have to collect those flags and avoid the purple little monster thing.
Obviously a Coco 3 game, is it?
Well,
nope.
That's what I'm going to ask you, Ken. How are you doing this?
That's why I was going to get into that. There is actually Coco 1 and 2 version, a Coco 3 version, or an MC10 version. And I will accept scores submitted from all of those. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a separate score list for each one. So if you want to submit a score for each one, you can do that.
Ooh, triple play.
Now, one thing we need to mention here, this is a common game engine created in Japan, and they've done numerous games for 30 or 40 different platforms. Inufuto, I think, is the name of the...
Inufuto, yeah.
Now, I don't believe any of these are on the archive yet. So if you're looking at the traditional
they're not.
place...
I am going to be putting a link to the homepage of this, and I just will show you here. This is what the homepage looks like. So as you can see, there's the Coco one, and then there's 2 files that you could download here. One is the cassette file, and one is the WAV file. So if you're running an emulator, just download the cassette file, and then you can run it on the emulator. If you're using real hardware, just download the WAV file, and you can run it through the cassette port. So it's only on cassette, but then you can run it through the cassette port on real hardware using whatever software you want to run it with.
Yeah. And as far as system requirements go, you can see they actually list that on the far left. So the Coco here takes 32K. The MC10 requires at least a 16K RAM expansion, or one of the newer ones past that because it's running in a graphics mode. And the Coco 3, of course, just takes the 128K. They're keyboard operated, I believe, too.
They are, and that's this column here. So it's just the J and K keys. You can't jump. You can fall off things.
And you ride the elevators up, so that's how you get up, and then you can go back down levels.
Yep. So J and K to go left and right.
It's a timer-based game. You get bonus points. So if you get all the flags faster, you get more bonus points based on the amount of time left in the timer, and then you get multiple screens where rejiggers where flags are, where the gaps are, etc.
And the game that I'm thinking of that this is based on is Mappy.
All right.
And Karen, who's comes from the Dragon world, of course, they stuck with cassette because their drives were horrendously expensive, says tape, the best format, as we all know. Maybe with some of the experiments David Ladd has done with, overclock crazy cassette loads, maybe.
That doesn't take all that long to load this, so.
Now, Kevin Holloway, this is a good question he has here. Will it work with the Coco SDC? Like, does it work if you have a disc controller plugged in, or is it strictly cassette and you have to unplug it?
Ooh. I don't know. I have not tried it on real hardware because... No, it should work with disc controller plugged in because on my emulator, I'm running it with the FD502 packs plugged in to the emulator, like the emulation pack. Thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's...
If there was problems, there is a utility called ROML, and I noticed it was just uploaded as a separate disk to the Computer Archive. It's a utility I've used back since it was released in '82 for loading cassette-based games or cartridge-based games, because it actually disables the ROM, disk ROM and stuff, and relaunches itself, basically.
But also you could just unplug the Coco SDC pack.
You can, but I mean, some people may not have a cassette cable, so that's not going to help them any.
Well,
so
can you
this
run
way they
cassette?
can run it off disk and just run ROML, tell ROML to load that particular game, and it would just shut the disk ROMs off and just fire it up. But it sounds like it should work anyway, so that may not be a thing. One thing we should do, Ken, is download the 2 Coco versions at the very least, and then put them on a disk image and put that disk image up on the the channel. That just because most people would be running off disk, especially if you want to play in real hardware.
Okay, well, I'll let you do that because
I can't. I'm too busy with work. I'm back to work right after the show. So,
David Ladd, how would you like to do that?
He stepped away.
Oh, because I don't have any of the stuff that I could do that with here. So
VCC should be able to do it.
Okay, then I also don't know how to do that.
Because VCC loads cassette files and WAV files.
So, Nick, it sounds like you're volunteering for this to me.
No. Was that an echo? No, it's all right. I got the radio on. You heard that.
Is there anybody with the knowledge of how to download this and put it on a disk file?
Well, if it's meant to be disk friendly, like you said, it runs fine. You should be able to just clone them and then save them as long as you know the addresses. And there's a couple peaks you can do to figure that out.
Okay.
That might be more fun than the game. Who knows? Trying to get it to disk.
Now, Tom Anderson had a good point talking about the Dragon, tape versus disk. He says, well, our tapes were just as fast as the Commodore Clown's disk drive. So,
And if you're running it on an emulator, it's easy to load the disk up. So, and if you're running it on an MC10, you pretty much have to use the disk file or the cassette file. Anyway.
Yeah. Because if somebody can take both the Coco 1.2 version and the Coco 3 version, transfer them to a disk image, put it up in the Discord in the Game On Challenge channel. and we probably should actually eventually to help Infuto put these all up on the Color Computer Archive too, just so that there's a nice central place to find them all.
Yeah. And also if you have other systems and are just interested, you can go to his page there. There's about 30 or 35 different systems this will run on.
Yeah, there's like MSXs and BBC Micros and Acorns and all kinds of stuff. Original PCs,
ColecoVision.
Some game consoles as well as some computers from back in the day.
Yeah, I think ColecoVision's the only game console he's got up there right now, unless some of the Japanese ones that are on their game consoles that I have no idea what they are. So,
yeah, and I mean they've ported I think 8 games for the Coco
11.
3 now, or sorry, 10 for the Coco 3
10 of the
and 11
for
for the other one. So there's one left.
Yeah.
The Coco 3 yet.
Although he might have done that because he's also now ported all the ones that he's ported to the Coco 3 to another system as well now.
Kevin says he sees Lift on the Coco Games archive, and I can verify that. Yeah, it says Lift and it says Infuto. C10.
Is it a cassette image or a disc image, Mark?
All. Actually, it says there's a disc image, cassette image, then the MC10 C10 image, as well as a wave image of the MC10.
Oh, so somebody's already done all that.
Yeah.
Including the Coco 3 one? That's the one that just came out the last couple of weeks.
No, it doesn't appear to be a Coco 3 one.
Okay. But if somebody wants to play the Coco 1 and 2 or the MC10 version, it looks like they're
all
there.
there.
They're on there.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'll also put links to his website so that you could get them there too.
Yeah. We should actually make it eventually, like not right away here, but we should make it Infuto. How do you pronounce that?
Inufuto, I think.
Sounds good. I'm glad you said it about me. Well, we should actually make like a compilation disc and actually like put all the Coco 3 ones onto a 1 or 2 disc image. You could download as a 1 zip and have the entire collection. And the same for the MC10, same for the Coco 1 and 2. Because they're pretty decent little games. And I mean, some are arcade clones, some appear to be fairly original. So.
And like I said, this is an arcade clone of Mappy. So.
That's a game in the arcade I remember seeing, but I never really played it. So I'll have to
I
revisit
love that game. It's one of my favorites. That's why I chose this game.
Oh, yeah, because if it was me, I'd probably pick one of the like Bosconian clone or the Xevious clone or something.
I thought about that, but his flying shooting ones like that are pretty easy.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah.
That Scramble one looks pretty cool too. Where you actually angled your shots up and down.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's a really good game, but it's a little bit too easy.
Oh, okay.
Especially like once you learn the trick of where to fly to avoid the shots of everything, you pretty much
just walk through it forever.
Just walk through it, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, 60 saying probably straightforward to discify, but why would you? He's still a cassette fan.
Yeah, I'm fine with it being on cassette.
Yeah, Dragon users.
Hey, cassette was all I had when I was a kid too, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and our cassette, I mean, honestly, our cassette was faster than most others. We were 3 times faster than the Model 1 and 3, and 3,000% faster than the C64. So
anyway, so that's the game for next week. So apparently some of the versions are available on the archive, and I will link to his website, like I said, so you could download them directly from him as well. Matter of fact, it might be nice to download them directly from him if you plan on using the cassette file, because then he gets to see the traffic going to his website.
Encourage him to do more Coco stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't even need joysticks because they're all keyboard based.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Nick?
What was the name of this game again?
Lift.
Lift, okay.
Just think of a British elevator.
Yeah.
So If you can you post the link also in the chat here so that it's recorded on the video? Because some people watch CoCoTALK are not on our Discord.
Oh,
so
okay.
they have the link to go get it.
I will do that in a couple of minutes.
Alan Murphy already did it. Never mind.
Okay, good. I don't have anything turned to save bandwidth. I don't have any of the actual show playing, so I can't see any of the chats.
Yeah, and Alan posted the direct link to Lift. So Alan, if you want to post the link to the actual main page so they can get all the other games if they want to try them out if they like Lift, just be nice to help encourage people to try out the Coco and MC10 stuff to help encourage the developer to do more.
Yeah, so that's all I have to say for this week. So
cool.
It should be a pretty even playing field, as I don't think a lot of people have tried this yet.
Yeah, and the fact that it's based on the same core engine because it's cross-platform means the game should play pretty well the same in all of the platforms. You should have an advantage doing an MC10 versus a Coco 1.2 versus a Coco 3, I would imagine.
And as it's only 2 keys, it makes it really easy for using the keyboard, not one where you have to use up, down, left, right, fire, or jump, or whatever.
It's not like Defender where you have ring the butler, windshield wipers, fire, thrust, and everything else.
Okay,
Cool.
Well, that's all I have to say for this week. So,
all right, you want me to go straight on Game On News? There's not a ton this week, but
yeah, let me hit the intro here.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on News with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
Okay. Go for
okay,
it.
so first up, we've got multiple things from Tim and AJ. So this first one's a little bit different and off topic for what we normally would do here, but it's the very first episode. Now, if you guys have watched Sibling Rivalry with Tim Linder and his sister AJ, where they play games from a variety of systems, including multiple Coco games, including one that got released yesterday we'll be talking about shortly. It's basically 2 people, a brother and sister, playing games from back in the day when they were young and drinking while doing it. So of course, it gets quite hilarious watching 2 men interact, especially if they're on like the 3rd or 4th recording of the day, because they record like a month in advance. So they do a whole bunch of games. And by the end of the last game, they're usually pretty hammered. So but there's been lots of compliments from AJ about how great her watermelon martinis taste. So she actually has Drunkology, which is kind of a follow-up show for them, where she teaches you exactly how to make the exact watermelon martinis she drinks on the show. So I won't play that here because we're family friendly. I don't want to encourage the alcoholics in the crowd. But it's
obviously
an
a
amusing,
different kind of game.
Yeah, it's an amusing video anyway. It's quite well done, and it's actually like a multi-camera shot. She's got an old shoulder shot. You can see what she's cutting stuff or mixing stuff, and then they got the front shot her talking directly to the camera too. So it's actually well produced too. But this, I don't know if there's any more episodes. If Tim's going to teach how to make a proper gin and tonic, the exact right mixture, because that's usually his drink of choice. But it's an interesting and amusing side, as all of their videos are. Now, next up, this is they're doing an advertisement for their t-shirt pre-order. Now, they've got multiple designs of the shirts here. The particular ones they're wearing in this video are the Intellivision controllers, or what does AJ call them? Remotes, I think is what she calls them. But they do have a Black Beauty joystick version as well, too. So if you go onto their pre-order site, which you can see on the bottom, you can actually check out the different shirts. So different designs, too, like the V-neck and the standard t-shirt, etc. too. So I will play it till a minute 12. I got permission from Tim to play the video in its entirety, so we'll do that right now.
AJ, look what I'm wearing.
This really cool shirt that I designed.
Well, you actually designed 4 different shirts.
I know, because the remote controls are really fun.
Yeah, also known as the hand controllers or the joysticks or the paddles or the driving controllers.
They're all remotes. They're all remotes, so.
But we're going to be doing merch sales.
Yeah! We're going to have t-shirts for everybody.
We're going to have multiple colors, of course, multiple sizes,
and
multiple styles.
So far, 4 different designs.
Look at the V-neck.
Women's cut.
Look what she's showing off.
My neck. Neck. It doesn't even show cleavage. It's like a really modest. It's a nice shirt.
Shows my cleavage.
Very soft. Very soft. I insist on wonderful soft shirts.
Yes, really soft. If you like the soft ones, These are going to be up your alley. So buy them today.
Yeah. Let us know if you want one. We're going to do some pre-sales here before our retro gaming show.
Link below.
Okay. Bye.
Now, Ken, you're actually fairly near where you normally live when you're not in the summer mode. Fairly close to where this show is, and it's what is it called again? Oh, sorry. The show they're talking about in October in Portland, because it's a classic gaming show. Right?
Yeah, it's the gaming expo down in Portland. Portland Gaming Expo.
Yep,
Retro
in October.
Portland Retro Gaming
Expo.
Portland Retro Gaming Expo.
Sounds good.
Okay. Now, is anybody planning on going to that from the panel here? Because from what I understand, from talking to Tim, is actually they're going to have a live. Not only going to be selling shirts, but they're actually going to have live gameplay with an audience. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of watermelon martinis being consumed at this point, but it should be fun watching anyway. And Tim has kind of confirmed they're both planning on attending Coco Fest this next year too. So hopefully we'll have some more shenanigans to watch. But Mark, are you going to that show or?
Yeah, I hadn't gone in the past, but I think I will this year. It's only an hour and a half for me, so it's just a day trip. So yeah, I really should, especially if Ken's there. It's always nice to, connect with people you don't get to see in real life. So.
And this is, I'm presuming this is a I don't know what they consider classics. I don't know how recent this goes up to, but it actually includes recent consoles as well as old ones. But it's a console and home computer expo. Is it also arcade or is it just?
Yeah, I believe they have an arcade section too.
So just retro gaming in period.
In general, yeah.
Cool. Anyway, I'll just quickly hit their form thing just to show you a couple of the designs here. So you can see there's a classic Nintendo there. There's the Intellivision. There's the Coco Black Beauty. Or sorry, this is the Coco Black Beauty. That's the Atari 2600. I don't know what the heck that one is. Off my head.
I'm posting the link to the website, and it does show a large line of arcade games. So,
okay, I think that's actually the deluxe joystick, the one that the PC, like the Tandy and the Tandy 1000s and the Coco both used. But these are all designed and I think hand drawn, if I remember, by AJ herself. So, they didn't just take stock photos or anything. They did it. So, and then finally, they've got their latest episode of Sibling Rivalry. You can see the same joystick designs here that they're put on the T-shirts, though they've got a couple more on the T-shirt sign. So I will mute this while we talk about it. So I won't play the whole thing, obviously. But today, or the one they released yesterday, episode 43, they're covering Wrestlemania by Dicom. Now, since Dave Dyes was the head of Dicom, and we're going to have him on the show here on September the 3rd, this might be one of the games we talk about. Now, it was written by Kevin Hoare, who also did some other games we've covered on before. I don't know if we've done on the challenge yet or not, but I've definitely talked about it on the show. He did some stuff for Dicom. He also did some stuff from some other companies as well. And as far as I know, this is the only wrestling game that was ever commercially released for the Coco. It's very minimal on sound effects. I think mainly because they're moving some pretty large shapes around on a Coco 1 and 2. But graphically, it looks pretty good, and it's got a ton of moves. This is the type of game I never like. The Double Dragons, the combat style games. I never really got into them because to me they were too complicated. You had to move the joystick and hit a button at a certain time to do these weird moves and stuff. And that was just too much for me to memorize. Just give me a single fire button and moving. I'm pretty well extending my brain power to its limit at that point. So this is a game I never really got into. I know Aaron and Boat are huge fans of this genre, and they weren't as impressed with it as Tim and AJ were because they covered it on the Coco show a few months back. To me personally, I mean, graphically, it's a pretty impressive game. There's a lot of moves and stuff in it. If you're into this type of game, it's not really my type of game, but they had a lot of fun with it. There was a lot of laughter going on. They were trying to kill each other at the end because they wanted to see what it looked like when you died. And they couldn't do it because you recover too fast. And I sent them some tips from what I've saw Aaron and them playing it that might help them finally get to that point. They might do a follow-up or something. I'm not sure. But as usual, they have a ton of fun doing this game here. I'll just skip ahead a little bit of the gameplay so you guys kind of see what the game looks like itself here. And it's tag team, so you can actually tag to get another person in. The health bars are the white lines. The orange is kind of the warning. That's when you kind of get stunned or knocked out for a little bit. And that's when you try to pin your opponent. But it's got things like you can throw the person against the rope. You can clip them when they come bouncing back. You can climb up on the rope and try to jump on top of them from a great height. You can like flip them end over end onto the mat. You can flip them end over end right onto your knee. It's got all the classic WWF style moves in it. And it's a rather unique game in the Coco thing. And we'll talk to Dave about this game and all the other ones that he sold when we have them on. So go check that out. This is something new they started too. They're going to do bingo cards, and they got a whole bunch. I think there's a set of 12 you can download. And basically, you play bingo by any time they use a certain phrase on their game. I don't know if they're planning on doing this live during the actual retro gaming show in Portland or not here. But basically, anytime they say one of them says one of these keywords, or you fill it in and you try to get bingo. Now, much to my surprise, like they got stuff like AJ hates the game and Tim geeks out or Shema Wonga Ding Dong or whatever that was. But they actually put my name in here because apparently I get called out a lot on this here. So I put me on the first panel, which I was not expecting. I had no idea they did that. So anyway, if you want to have a little bit of fun watching their shows, I think this would work best live. I have no idea. I doubt they're intending on ever doing the show all live too often because they do pre-record, like you do a month's worth of shows in a single day. So it doesn't really lend itself to being live. Otherwise, you'd be watching the show months early. But for doing stuff at the expo or doing stuff at Coco Fest, I would love if they had these bingo cards printed out, and people can just follow along and see who pays attention to what they're saying to get that. Anyway, they're downloadable. They have a link to it on the bottom of their video for the Wrestlemania show that you can actually go download this if you want to play along. Next up, we have an update here from James Diffendaffer. Now, James did tell us before the show that he wasn't going to be able to make it today because he's working. But he was giving us an update on his project of porting the AGD game engine, the one that was originally on the Spectrum, and then Keys and Peripherals ported to the Coco. And we've seen tons of several hundred games. We've even featured one of them on the Game On Challenge recently. I don't remember which one it was. Ken, do you remember? I know it was one of the ones that had the more advanced engine.
Yeah, the one where you're running around the field trying to find the treasures or the keys or whatever.
Yeah, and it actually had you could run behind stuff and in front of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's been working on the MC10 port of this, and he's still got some more work to do, but he has managed to get some speed ups even to the original 6.809 code as well. And he's now passed that back to Keys and Para so that they can actually handle some of the games that are running a little bit slow. Because if I remember, the Spectrum has a Z80, Z80 processor, but it's running at 3.5 megahertz or something, and we're running, Coco 1 and 2 level games here at 0.895 megahertz. So any speed ups you can do, would help. And he's passed those back up the chain. And then he's continuing to work on the MC10 one. Now, the MC10 obviously, by default, usually has less RAM than some of these other machines. So you may not be able to play all the games. Like the larger ones, you probably won't be able to. But the smaller ones, you definitely should be able to. And he's optimizing it so that they should run at a better clip than the current Coco ones do. And hopefully the Coco will catch up with that afterwards. So kudos to James for working on that project, and look forward to that because that'll add another dozens and dozens of games in machine language for the MC10. So we've got these cross-platform projects that are now covering MC10 games, like the 11 from Inikudo. And now James will do another port here that might get dozens more. So once again, the MC10 machine language game market is expanding, which is really cool. Next up, this one's not strictly Coco related, but the ARG presents that they just released here this week. From Brent and Aaron from the Amigos, cover Sea Dragon. Now, this is a game we're familiar with. We have played that one on the Game On Challenge before. Now, in this particular case, they covered it on two other platforms, the TRS-80 Model 1 and 3, which I believe might have been the first version. And then they also covered the Atari 400, which I was surprised at how dog slow that game plays compared to the Model 1, 3 or the Coco version. I will play a little bit of a clip here because this is a game that both of them played when they were young on the Coco. And there's some parts of the Coco version that were a bit unique to it compared to some of the other versions. All of them had some stuff in common, but I'll play just a little clip here. But you should check it out if you're into the history games. And they have another game too. The theme was submarine-based games, and the other one's a game I've never seen before. I think it was a PC one or something. Silent Steel for Windows 3.1. But I'll let you guys watch the rest. But I'll just play this little clip where they mentioned the Coco.
But I'm taking a look at Sea Dragon.
Oh, he'll bite you.
And Aaron, Sea Dragon released on everything all the time.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on the TRS-80 releases, but this was also released for the Apple II, the Atari 8-bit, the Commodore 64, the Tandy Coco, and the IBM PC. This was an interesting take on a sub game because it really just said, I'm a sideways scrolling shooter, but let's have underwater elements. And it was like, bam, there it was.
I thought it was clever. It's sort of like It's sort of like an inverted Scramble.
Scramble is obviously the core influence here. The game is probably, what would you say, most famous on probably the Coco?
No, I wouldn't say that.
You don't
say
think?
It's more famous for the Atari 8-bits. Brent left it open this week, so I ended up playing this on the 8-bits. But I will say,
Back, when you shoot, you have the option to shoot forward or up. There are the main enemies, I guess, in the game are.
Now, Nick Moretti's, you were a big Model 1 guy back in the days. Is this a game you played?
Yes, it was. It's a good game, really good game on the Model 1. I used to play that game a lot.
Yeah. And it did the Tertiary Model 1 version talk? I can't remember.
No, it didn't have talking.
Okay, so I think it was the Apple II and the Coco versions talked.
Yeah.
But I'll just fast forward. Oh, go ahead.
It was very fast. It was very well done for a Model 1 when you consider the resolution.
Yeah, because here I'll show you the Atari version. Now, the Atari version at first glance looks impressive, like color. It's more colorful than the Coco version. They got a higher res, more colors, they have sprites, but just watch how slow it plays.
a cup of coffee with the TRX-80 one.
Yeah.
But mostly I played, because you didn't really say, you told me it was wide open, so I could play on one. So I just happened to have it.
Like that's painfully slow to me.
And
I don't know why, because Atari definitely can do way better than that. So I'm not quite sure.
Oh, that'd be a sprite too. Wouldn't be any work at all. Yeah, he's going for realism.
Quicker.
Subs don't go that fast underwater anyway, so probably going for realism.
I just read about a sub that goes up to 50 miles an hour underwater, so I'm not so sure about that.
Oh, one might, but most don't.
Anyway, I'd have to say that the Coco version to me is better than the Atari one. It's just more fun to play, just from looking at it. I know the Apple version talked. I have never seen the PC version, and I don't know if I've seen the C64 version.
The Apple version would have been 1-bit sound. Is that what they did on the Coco version?
No, they did 6-bit on the Coco version.
6-bit. So
because we had the multi-voice music and we had the speech.
Right.
And the Apple version did talk, so they did 1-bit sampling of the talking. I do know that.
I think the C64 version is very similar to the Atari.
Yeah. Well, they both had 6.502s. They both had sprite chips. So I think if they were doing translations, that would be the one you pick as your base. I know the C64 version came out later because this was actually released in 82, just as the C64 was getting released. So the initial full page ads that Adventure International took out for it, I think basically said the Apple II, the Atari 400, 800, and the Coco. And I think that was it on the original ads. And then like they added the IBM PC and the C64 later as you know, those machines became more popular. Anyway, it's a pretty good, interesting history of it. And then the Silent Steel is a pretty interesting game if you're into retro Windows game, Windows 3.1. And then the last games when I got here, I'm not going to play all these here, but Coco Forest, I did a bunch more, and they do these, 2-packs of something with a theme of Dragon 32 games. Sometimes it's like an author or a publisher or, the gameplay or a character in the game is common or whatever else. And of course, he has all the original artwork and stuff from the original cassettes for the Dragon, which, of course, are much better than most of the ones we saw in the Coco. So the ones that he added this last week here, he added Manic Miner and Screaming Abdabs. He added Toppler and Jet Boot Colin, Frogger and Crazy Painter, Speed Racer Morocco Grand Prix, Mr. Dig and Galactic Ambush, which was called Cosmic Ambush in North America. Unfortunately, they got the later version where the sound was really dumbed down. The original promotional copy that Andy Cluck was shopping around for that game had much better sound, though it did get gray shading after a while. But the almost sound command beeps and boops on the commercial version were horrible. Beanstalker and Cuthbert Goes Digging. Beanstalker's kind of Load Runner with some twists. And Devil Assault and Danger Ranger, which he just added this morning. So I don't know. Do you want to see any of these, or should I just end the game on news now?
I guess move on.
Okay. So I'll stop sharing. I'll just go straight in the news.
Yep, we already did the intro, so.
Grab the window and bring it up so I can see what I'm looking at. Share. Okay, you guys are seeing that?
Yep.
Slabitha.
Yeah. Okay, so Alen Upton has put up part 2 of his Doing Spiral Effects blog series. Now, if you remember from last time, which I think actually literally was last week, he had it where he was kind of doing a spiral effect to fill in the screen, then drawing a couple other rectangles in color. And he wrote it in BASIC, and the first one was quite slow. And then he did an optimized BASIC one that was literally 3 times faster. And then this time he's getting to the assembly language, which is so fast it basically just shows up instantly. So here is the fast BASIC version. Just kind of recap. That's where a little bit. So just to give it kind of a neat little effect. Then he has a broken link here. I forgot to tell him about that actually. But then he decided to go out and do some other stuff. So he's doing screen increment where he kind of rotates through the characters and the graphic symbols to kind of make a dissolving style effect here. Written in assembly language, of course, at this point, because BASIC wouldn't keep up to this.
Has he got a BASIC 09 version?
No, I've actually talked to him about doing some BASIC 09 stuff because he's one of the beta testers on the new version that's coming with version 1 with some minor speed improvements. I do know I did show we did a live stream with BASIC 09 once with Stevie, probably a couple years ago now, where I actually did some poking of the screen to show how fast BASIC 09's integer poking is based compared to color BASIC, and did something similar where I was kind of just rotating through the characters, and it's orders of magnitude faster.
These would be small programs. It'd be good if you did a BASIC 09 article.
He did ask, like he'd never done that back in the day, like for the VDG screen in particular that he's using here. That's one you have to map into your own program space to get to. So he asked, like he said, I never did this back in the day. So how do you do it? And I sent him, because it's literally like 3 lines of code. And I sent him a little sample program. So I know he records a lot of these way in advance. He said he's actually got stuff pre-done and booked up to like mid-October already. For his blog series. So I don't know if he's going to throw that in later on, but keep an eye out for it, because I did send him some code to actually do that type of thing.
Yeah, because that'd be a good BASIC 09 tutorial for people.
Yeah, it would, especially for level 1, because that's the type of stuff you do in level 1 for Coco 1 and 2.
Well, yeah, even that.
Yeah. So Taylor and Amy actually had another show too, and this one they're installing Zipster, Ed Snyder's composite mod for the MC10 to get better quality text and graphics on a more modern monitor type thing instead of the standard RF. And this one was kind of funny because this one kind of hit home with me. If Bill Noble's still on the call, is he? I can't even see at this moment.
No.
He must have step up. So there's a rather famous story where I was fiddling with a Coco 3, and I just set it back up on my desk at home. This is early on, in Nitrous 9 days. I'd done my TC9 I normally used. And I plugged in the multi-pack, and I plugged in like my hard drive controller and my floppy controller and an Orchestra 90 pack and all this other stuff. And then it wouldn't work. Like I couldn't even get the disk to come up. It would just come up extended basic, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was wrong. I tried reseating the things together, plugging the multi-pack back in. And I'm not a hardware guy, as you guys well know. And so I ended up calling Bill over and I said, can you come over and figure it out? Like, I think I blew something up here. So he brings up, the test meters and all kinds of stuff, and he's working on it for about half an hour. And then he suddenly notices that the plug for the multi-pack is not plugged into the wall; it's just laying on the floor beside my desk. So he blew half an hour, because I didn't plug it in. And they had something similar to that happen here. So they actually did the upgrade. And I'm not going to play the whole video because you can see all the interactions, and they're a ton of fun to watch, just like Tim and AJ are. So they showed taking apart the MC10, and there's Zipster's little board, and it actually clips like once you take the RF modulator part of it out of the MC10, this actually clips in the exact same spot. So it actually is meant to fit right there. So it's really easy to get in. But all they got when they turned it on was a no screen and a buzzing sound. And then Taylor actually was pretty shook up by this because she tried everything, testing points, resoldering stuff, desoldered the whole thing, put it back in, resoldered it all, could not get it working. And she was just kind of despondent. And she fired a text to me saying that she was lost. She thought she might have blown it up or something. I said, well, I don't know anything about that MC10. I don't have one. I said, but contact Brendan Donaghy, because Ed Snyder's really hard to get a hold of directly. Because Brendan, makes the Coco VGA. Ed does the manufacturing for him, so he's quite familiar with the MC10. He's put the Coco VGA in the MC10. He's done this mod on the MC10 itself. I know for a fact because he has him at the show at the Coco Fest. I said, you contact him, and he'll probably be able to help you more than I would be able to. So I sent the email address for him, and Brendan, sent back an email, and they kicked on explaining the show here that it could be one of these various different things. But he said, I've also seen this same type of thing where I've had that garbage sound coming out, and it was just because the audio and video cables are backwards because the color coding on them doesn't exactly match what the TV does. So was it yellow for video normally? And then I think white or red is the standard mono audio.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be the problem. It was just that the cables were reversed. So she did all this unsoldering and testing over a full day trying to figure out what was wrong because the cables were off, which hit home with me because that's the type of thing I do where I just don't plug the damn power in. So it was a big relief when they got it up and running. So they quickly played a Jim Gary game. But you should definitely watch it because you can watch the frustration and trying to figure out what's going on. And then they come back the next day to explain how what fixed it type thing. So it's quite amusing. But I'm glad that I'm not the only person that has problems with hardware that end up being quite simple.
Video does have a very distinctive sound. Everyone should plug a composite video in and listen to it so they know.
To buzz, yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it has a very distinctive buzz, so you'll always know your cable's wrong once you know what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't change depending on what the picture being displayed is or anything?
Oh, it's the sync of the video that you're hearing.
Yeah, it's 60 hertz hum
thing going.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. I don't know if Taylor and Amy know that too. So Taylor and Amy, if you're watching,
well, they know it now.
Yeah, that should be a good point. That'll help you with your other retro systems if that happens again with some of the other ones too. And Rocky Hill Pedro Pena, of course, is another hardware whiz. He's going laughing my ass off in the comments there. So now I was going to ask and speak honestly here. You hardware gurus like Rick and Mark and some of the others here. Is this something you've actually done yourselves? And if you have, was it like only when you were starting into electronics, so you didn't know this stuff? Or is it this actually bitten you like 20 years afterwards and you should have known better, but something like this happened, something so simple?
I have stupid moments like that still.
Yeah. Right. When you're good at something, you have stupid moments more all the time because you put it off for 5 years and then you have your stupid moment. You do it right without understanding why you're doing it right until you do it wrong. And then you have to figure out why it's all of a sudden doesn't work anymore. I've been doing this for 10 years. Why doesn't it work? And you'll find some basic thing that you've just accidentally done right for the last 10 years.
And you forget to go back and start the basics again.
Well, that's what she did. Like she went through and tested everything. Like, is it got on the ground? Does it have power on this pin? Is the solder done properly? And nothing was wrong.
Right. Yeah, and you forget that it was just that start off at just the simple thing, like is the cord in the right place or is it plugged in the wall?
Okay, I feel better then. And hopefully Taylor does too.
So many things to get right. So many things to get right.
I mean, that's the kind of moment where you understand your parents couldn't figure out how to set the time on the VCR, that type of thing. It's simple, but if you don't remember it, you just get blink 0, 0, 0, 0 type thing.
The MC10 is our VCR.
I know I do this on the Coco too. So dumb, stupid things. Anyways, it's a great episode. Glad to see they got back to the MC10. Next up, and this one, Nick, maybe we'll have a comment or two on. So a bunch of the info coconuts. Oh no, sorry, this isn't the Australian ones. That's a different story coming up later. This is I think Fedor Steeman uploaded these to the Computer Archive just recently. And this is a newsletter from their Coco Club in the Netherlands called Info Coconut. So it's all in Dutch. And he's uploaded a whole series of them here. In fact, there might be some newer ones I haven't seen here. But it looks like he's trying to gradually put the entire run in. And the Netherlands is one of the countries that did not get the Coco 3 when it was released. They talk about it in some of those issues because I did check. And I ran it through, the Google Translator type thing. But it's a nice snippet of what European Coco using was like. So I'll just bring up one issue here so you guys can see here. Also covers the Dragon 3264. But right off the bat, you can see it's not English. And I have to say, Google Translate or Babelfish before is awesome. I mean, it's not perfect. There's certain nuances of ways people speak is not the same as, the written word type thing. So it doesn't always do things perfectly, but man, is it nice having that ability, because I can go through and see all these things from different languages, from different countries that I would have had no hope in hell figuring out back in the day. I don't know anybody here that locally speaks Dutch. I don't have a clue. Bill's dad would have been able to do it when he was still alive, but I don't know if he'd want to read like a Coco periodical out loud to a story time, type of thing. But it's cool that this stuff is getting archived. It's cool that the archive's actually getting all of it. There's even ads from some of the companies in the Netherlands that sold and supported Coco software and hardware. So you get to see like what was the market like over there, type thing. And there's like over a dozen issues now, and it looks like he's actually putting up more. So a lot of cool stuff to see in there. So thanks. I'm pretty sure it's Fedora that's doing it. This next one's kind of interesting too, and this was brought up by John Lurie. There's an 80s themed Airbnb bed and breakfast, and the Coco actually makes an appearance. So I'm assuming most people are familiar with bed and breakfast is. So instead of staying in a hotel, you go stay at somebody's private place, and then basically it's a place to sleep and to eat. That's hence the bed and breakfast type thing. So it's a bit more than a hotel. It's more homey feeling, like you're basically staying at somebody's house kind of thing. Now, this one's a bit special. The guy's been collecting arcade, retro console, retro arcade, retro computer, home computers, and he's themed this bed and breakfast, and it's huge, in the 80s. So he's got 80s furniture. He's got 80s rock posters on the wall. He's got 80s comic books lying around that you can read. He's got 80s handheld games you can play. So you get to use all this stuff while you stay there. And he's got a full-blown arcade with multiple rooms with full-blown arcade things. And he's also got home computers and old consoles that you can play as well. Like you've got live versions of these with game cartridges and controllers and the whole bit. So it's basically like a retro arcade, but with all the home stuff, plus all the decor is also 80s themed. And most of us, I think, grew up in the 80s. Maybe not all of us, but I think most of us did. So this would be really like going back home again type thing. So there's a video that they put up to promote it. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's 13 minutes. I'm going to play the beginning so you kind of get an idea of what this thing's about and kind of what they're doing. And the Coco actually makes a brief appearance on one of the shelves at about 2 minutes, 10 seconds. I'll cut it off pretty well just after that. So I'll play about the first 2.5 minutes.
This is me walking through the largest Golden Age arcade on the East Coast that has recently been turned into an 80s themed Airbnb by the owner. Can we be better than that? In this video, we'll introduce you to the man who spent 26 years collecting these games, give you a full tour, and show you what it's like to be teleported back in time.
Oh, don't run into a tree.
And spend the night in 1980. When we first arrived, we had the pleasure of meeting the master collector, musician, and host Scott Leftwich.
Everything is definitely authentic, even me.
He gave us a quick tour around, shared some interesting facts about the arcade.
It was an overnight sensation.
And fascinated us with the history behind his insane collection.
This is the first game ever made in history.
But now,
let's transport back in time to the 80s. All right, let's go inside. Welcome inside this 80s Airbnb. This is...
Thank you, YouTube.
Is insane. You have transported back to the 80s and it is decorated perfectly in here. So let me show you the details of this place. Over here you've got your bedroom with 2 twin 80s beds, posters on the wall, and a couple of really neat things like this ET lamp, games, comics, and there's even a little game on your key. They also have a really neat box over here that has old tickets to concerts from all over the place. So this Airbnb is actually filled with a lot of history. Across from the beds is a dresser that you can put your stuff in during your stay, and it has some really cool things up here, including this clock, cassette tape, phone combo, which is so cool. They've got more games, comics, cassette tapes, a clock. Moving this way, you've got a record player and a cassette player with plenty of choices for music. And then you've got another dresser that you can put your stuff in while you're here with more games on top because there is plenty to do while you're here. Back on this wall, all, the owner Scott
See the Coco on the upper right
filled
corner
it
of the
with
shelf.
every gaming console from the late 70s to the early 80s, and you can play all of them, and there are multiple games for each one. And then right over here next to the bed is a mini fridge stocked with a couple of waters, and then moving this way, you've got two
Bit of
vintage
Vectrix in there.
couches that are
Yep.
set up in a theater style, so it's perfect for playing games with whoever you bring along. Right now, he's got out a Nintendo gaming console with Super Mario Bros. On it. There's also a VHS player if you want to watch some VHS movies.
Yeah, I won't play the whole thing there, but they actually go through detail, and they go through the arcade in detail. So the first arcade game they're talking about is Computer Space, Nolan Bushnell's original one from 70 or 71. And they've got a rare game. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a game apparently there's only one functioning one in the world, and it's at that arcade and you get to play it. So there's a lot of cool stuff in the arcade. And the arcade's multiple rooms. Like, so I think they said there's 125 arcade games, like actual, arcade games. So it looks like a fascinating place. If I ever get around out there, that would be a nice stop to have for a night or two. I think it'd be pretty fun.
I still have some of that stuff.
Yeah, I still have some of these VHS tapes myself.
I was just thinking, way to monetize your absurd collecting hobby, eh?
Yeah. I mean, you got Blade Runner, you got Beverly Hills Cop, you've got Star Trek 4, V.
Still got one of those drawer things that holds the tapes.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is
those.
the dressers and stuff they showed here, I've actually still got one dresser that's from the exact same collection.
Right.
With a mirror on top. It's a small one, but it's downstairs. I use it.
I've got that VCR drawer thing that they had, the wood grain one with the big.
Yep. Yeah, you pull it out, the little rack, and the little slots with the tapes.
Yeah, I got those.
Good Lord, we're old. Next up, I'm trying to remember. Cathay Sita is the wife's Facebook account. Is it Tormod or who is it now? Oh, shoot.
I thought it was Pear or yeah.
No, it's not Pear.
It's not Pear. Okay.
I don't think. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. It's somebody like that. Basically, they're using the wife's account because they don't use Facebook themselves. But basically here, because they've gotten some questions of it about the different manuals that were produced in Europe for the Cocos, and they weren't all put into one box generically, so that you got like 6 languages in a single box when you bought one. But they would pick a couple of languages. Now we did this in Canada. We had French and English versions in all of ours. So you got both versions of manual. In the States, did they do it with Spanish or anything, or did you just get English manuals when you bought a Coco?
I think it was just English.
Okay. So Canada, like Europe, we had the multiple ones here, but basically he's put up some scans here of the covers, and I'll just zoom it up a little bit here. So you can see the English ones on the very top are the original Color Basic and the Extended Color Basic, and it says Tier Study Color Computer, so that's Color Computer 1. Then he's got French second here, and you'll notice that the Extended Basic one actually says Color Computer 1 and 2. So the 2 would come up at this time. But then after that, he's actually got some other languages that I've never seen before. So the third row is Dutch. So this is the Dutch, and it says Color Computer 1 and 2 there, and Color Computer 1 and 2 there, but you can see the Dutch. I won't even try to pronounce this, but you can see it on the screen. And the last one here only has the extended one, but that's German. So that's another place that the Coco actually was, in the Coco 1 and 2 days, was fairly popular. And that one's actually a German one for the Coco 1 only, not the Coco 2, so that's an earlier one. And then later on, he actually put in the comments some scans of the boxes. So you can see like the multi-pack here is 4 different languages on the box. And the Cocos themselves here have multiple languages, more than 2 on the box as well. And then he's got, the MC10 ones. We've kind of seen those before. And the different, and those have like a ton of languages on them, French and Spanish and all kinds of stuff. So it's just interesting the different culture that Europe had, where, rather than making a separate run for every country, and the countries are smaller there, and the market was probably smaller too, that they would make one generic box for that would cover like 6 or 10 countries at a time, and put the manuals in for a couple languages as well, and then you just sell it all as the same thing in each of those countries, kind of like we did with French and English up here. So because the French is mostly Quebec, most of the rest of Canada would have just done English. I mean, we do have some pockets of French in other parts too, but they just said, yeah, we're just going to make one run for Canada, and they're getting both. And that's exactly what they did in Europe.
Which version of English, though?
Well, you guys are the only ones that started respelling everything wrong. So, I mean, it's the Queen's English. Next up, Carl England actually published, he's been publishing a bunch of stuff. He's been working on a superboot utility and making it Coco SDC compatible. So what he did here is he's actually posted source code for utility. We talked about last week. He was trying to figure out how to get the 40-track double-sided, quote-unquote, real OS9 floppy onto an 80-track single-side disk image for use on stuff like VCC and the Coco SDC. And this is the actual result. He got it working. So this is the actual source code. You can just, cut and paste or import, through LW tools or something. And now you have a way to work those so they work on VCC and the SDC. And if you have a lot of these 40-track double-sided disks, real floppies, they still have your real floppy drive. Now you got a nice, easy way to transfer them over so they work on everything. So thank you to Carl England for producing that. Next up, now this is a show that used to be on Twit, and then I think after episode 1500 or something like that, it became more independent. And it's got a little side show called the Gizwiz. You can see this one's called the Gizwiz, and it's kind of Dick DiBartolo, who is one of the writers at Mad Magazine and has been for 50 years. He's the guy you can see on the screen there. And then this is OMG Chad. I'm not used to seeing him without red hair like he used to in his younger days. But they still continue the show on. It's basically just, looking at random gadgets with a lot of humor and stuff thrown in. And they had a side show called the Gizwiz where they would just interview people from the chat. And actually, I managed to get on that one a couple of times back in the mid-2010s, I guess it was, or early 2010s. So I'm quite familiar with both of them. And actually, I did send them a response to this video because I haven't actually watched their show in a while. But one of the things they have is a bit of a feature is they have a bunch of different segments they do, as well as just the general chatter. So one of the segments they do is called Dick's Gadget Warehouse. And it's basically just some random piece of old tech they pulled out of, his warehouse. And he literally has a warehouse in New York City loaded with old tech stuff. Because Dick, in addition to being a Mad Magazine writer, has been on the cutting edge of technology for trying stuff, going to CS and Comdex and stuff right from the beginning. So he's got a ton of this old stuff. So this one here, instead of Dick pulling something out of his own gadget warehouse, one of the viewers, a guy named Max W, sent in a video here of stuff here. And I'll play it because it made a surprising guest appearance of something we know rather well.
With that, let's move on to Dick's Gadget Warehouse.
They're geeky and they're goofy. Together they are loopy. When gadgets pass away,
of course, YouTube's going to throw an ad there.
So previously, when we were using spreadsheets, we were heavily meeting dependent. It took us hours to up.
In Dick's Gadget Warehouse.
Okay, our email is from Max W, who says, "Hi, Dick and Chad. Been meaning to make a gadget video of this item for years. I'll explain in the video the incentive to do it now."
Perfect.
So here's Max's video.
Hi, Dick and Chad. I'm Max, and this is my gadget warehouse, also known as my basement. And today I'm sharing with you an item that I've had a hard time getting rid of, but I think I'm finally getting rid of now that we're going to be renovating our basement, is
wow,
this TRS-80 Color Computer 3. You can see that I paid $3.98 for it at a thrift store in Memphis a few years ago. I think I paid about $10 to ship it back home to Boston. But I did that because this was the second computer I ever owned after the original Tandy Radio Shack Color Computer 1, affectionately known as the Coco. This Coco 3 upgraded the Coco with some new features, including 128K of RAM.
Wow!
Instead of the 16 kilobytes that came in the original. It's also handled, I believe it was 256 colors instead of the
he corrected
8
that to
colors
64 later.
handled by the original Coco.
You might have the 256
when you ran
color
this,
version.
I've got it connected. As you can see, I've got a nice, elegant monitor stand here.
Oh, wow.
And you can see that the analog TV is causing some nice screen artifacts there. But we've got the Extended Color Basic under license from Microsoft. This was the operating system that came with the device. If you plugged a cartridge into this cartridge slot, you could use that either to load software, or you could use it to install a disk drive that would provide an interface, and you would change this to Extended Disk Color Basic, or maybe it was Disk Extended Color Basic, that allowed you to actually run a disk drive. One of the interesting things about this operating system, as you can see, is that when you started the OS, you
using the term a bit
were
loosely,
able
but
to
sure.
enter in programs in the basic programming language right from the command line. This was the same place where you could type in, load or save or whatever, but you could also enter programs with these line numbers. And if I run this program,
I love how the cursor is multicolored.
you'll see this exciting
just showing
program
off.
that I wrote. Now, you could also get magazines like Rainbow Magazine, which was not a gay pride magazine. It was actually the magazine of the color computer family here. And they would publish program listings like this for a slot machine application. And you could then sit there and type in all of the code. This is actually a fairly short one for this little slot machine, but there were ones that went on for pages and pages and hundreds of lines of code. And you could then save them to a cassette tape or to a disk drive if you had one. The disk drive, of course, were 5 1/4-inch floppies that held 160 kilobytes of data on each side. And if you punched a hole in a single-sided disk, you could sometimes flip it upside down and use the other side for another 160K, which was pretty exciting. So, all in all, a real relic. I bought it originally because I was teaching IT to some students, and I thought these young people would benefit from seeing how we did it in the old days. But as I said, now that I'm renovating the basement, I think it may be time to say goodbye to the Coco. Maybe I can get $4 for it, and
obviously hasn't been watching eBay lately.
No. Anyway, thanks guys. Love the show.
Okay.
That is awesome.
Oh,
Matt, that is
yes.
amazing.
And Max did join us in chat.
Yeah.
And Max said, here's a few more things. It was released in 1986. It was $210, which didn't include the monitor or the disk drive. And $210 back then is $540 today.
Which is close to what they're selling for now.
The CPU ran at 1.79 megahertz.
Oh.
And it came with 128K of RAM, upgradable to 512K, and graphic resolution of the graphics, it was 640 by 192 in 4 colors, and it could handle 64 colors, not 256, as I said in the video. Max, that was great. He said, I hope the audience enjoys this bit of computer history. It was great.
So I thought that was really cool, and I did leave a message to see if I can get them to get me in contact with Max, because I know a lot of people are still trying to find Coco 3s, so I'd like to find a good home for it.
I've already sent him payment for $4.
Yeah. Well, if he's put it up on eBay, I'm sure he's noticed that he can get more for it. But just try to get it to somebody in the community that actually will keep it, not just try to flip it as a way to make money type thing. Like I know Taylor named me, for example, and I'm not saying I'm going to give it to them or anything if the guy does respond, but they've been trying to find a Coco 3 for quite a while themselves. So I would like to give it to a good home. The other thing is too, he obviously does not know some of the stuff that's currently going. He doesn't know about like NitrOS9. He doesn't know that the Coco SDC exists and all this other stuff. So maybe he might change his mind and keep it and rejoin the community. He's obviously was part of it before if he's familiar with Rainbow Magazine, because that was not a Radio Shack store thing. So I did leave a message. I haven't responded. I just literally left it yesterday night, so I'm not expecting a response till later in the weekend. But we'll see what comes out of it, and I'll report back to you guys once we find out. But buying a Coco 3 working for $4. I don't remember. That would have been the early 2000s the last time they went for that cheap. I think even in the early 2010s, it was probably like $30-$40 to get one, and now it's hundreds. So I thought that was cool. Next up, color computer programming. He does these kind of learning basic as he goes and trying different things with mistakes and all included. And it's kind of meant to be a shared journey where you can comment on his videos afterwards, and he's trying to teach techniques as he learns them. So if you're expecting like cutting edge basic programming technology, this is not the series for you. This is just learning as he goes, and you get to share in the journey with him. And you can leave comments. Tim Linder's left comments. I've left comments, etc. I haven't covered him in a little bit, and he's actually did a couple of videos, but they were just pretty simple ones. This last week, he cranked out a whole bunch of them. So I decided to try to highlight his page again. So he's doing stuff on managing arrays and hidden sprite functions, or basically using the draw command to simulate a sprite rather than get put buffers. Tales of Suburbia is kind of a graphical adventure style game he's doing in BASIC that actually, I mean, it's not, you know, the greatest game in the world type thing, but it does have some really nicely drawn graphics, and it's kind of an interesting way he's, you know, displayed it. And then he's working on a BASIC version of Defender, or at least trying to get the equivalent look of a Defender style game. Now, doing this strictly in P-Mode 4 graphics in BASIC, no machine language at all, I thought he'd be doing like really simple, like here's a ship and he draws some static mountains background. No, he actually has the mountains trying to scroll and stuff too. So he's actually like really trying to bite off a lot here. And it's actually got it running not too shabby. And you see him get frustrated when certain things go wrong and stuff here too. So you kind of get the live feel. It's like watching Taylor trying to figure out the MC10 problem. But he's very honest on it that, you know, he's not a machine language programmer. He says, you know, I don't know some of these, you know, advanced math techniques some of the computer programmers understand. And I'm in the same boat. I mean, I understand algebra and stuff, but if you start getting into trig and, you know, heavy duty geometry, I kind of get lost. I never really fully understood in school. And some people could just rattle that stuff off the back of their head type thing. So it's a fun channel to watch and watch his learning journey as he goes through it. He's strictly Coco 1 and 2. He's aware of the Coco 3, but he said that's not what I grew up with. So this is what he's concentrating on. And he's done a lot of videos and a lot of different things. He's done a lot of things trying to cover arcade style techniques that will be slow, that will be flickery, but he's actually got them kind of working. I won't play you know, too much to these extent here. I'll just play his Defender, just kind of show you what he's kind of got going.
Hey, welcome back.
Let's see if we can get to part that he's actually moving around.
So let's run this, and we get a line, but it's way down here.
That's where he's just testing some clippings. He's adding a star field this one, so I'll just fast forward a bit here.
That wasn't. You need more math skills. You need to be schooled in calculus. Have the training. I'm not really concerned with it. If you guys want it, but I've tried making games like, I don't know, but I've tried making games like,
I mean, for attempting to do that in BASIC, it's
Pac-Man,
pretty impressive that he figured out everything to get
you
that
know,
to work.
halfway,
It's not something
and
I
just
probably would
had
even
to
tackle
stop.
trying to
It
do with
was too
scrolling on
much,
terrain.
and from scratch.
But yeah, like I said, don't expect like genius level programming here. That's not what this is about. It's about the learning as you go type thing. Next up, we got an update from Simon Jonasson, who's currently porting Paul Thayer's Timberman to the MC10, which is kind of ironic because Paul Thayer wrote it with Simon's help on the Coco, because he was just learning a assembly language at that point. But this isn't about the game itself, which is why I didn't put in the game on news. So he's got a screenshot here. You can see, and then we've played Timberman on the Coco 3. We'll recognize the game here as the trees. And of course, what you're eventually going to see is a lumberjack, you know, secretly disguised as Ron Delvaux. Basically, you know, jumping out of the side of the tree, slicing it with the axe, and it falls, and then the branches are coming down towards your head, and you have to avoid getting hit in the head with a branch. And it gets faster and faster as you go, and you have a timer, etc. But what he wanted to try to do here, because the MC10 is much more pressed for RAM. So most people that have an MC10 might have the 16K RAM pack from Tandy, which gives you 20K total. And now there's more, you know, modern solutions, they bump it up to like 32K or higher. But he's trying to make it, because there's no official disk drive for the MC10. There is some SD card solutions now, but most people are running off cassette, you know, WAV players or whatever. He wanted to get it so it can compress the data and it'll load a lot faster. And he's been working on Doug Maston. Now, Doug Maston, you recognize his name. He's one of the people that originally co-authored Contras for Sundog, one of the most ambitious games in the Coco 3 ever done. And he's did this routine here that's based on, I'm trying to remember what the original platform was. Was it the Spectrum that did this compression routine?
Yeah, I believe the Spectrum ZX80 or Z80.
Yeah, because it's called the ZX0 code decompressor, or since it's Spectrum, probably ZX0 is how they pronounce it. But it's a very, very small routine. Now, you can make the compressor on a modern PC because compression takes a lot longer. But the design of it is to make a compressor that is fast and very, very small footprint. And to get it to run on the original Z80, Z80, and then it's been ported to the 609 by Doug Maston. And the routine itself is like a couple hundred bytes to do a complete decompression. And Simon has now got the decompression working on the 6803 and the MC10. And to give you an example how good the compression works, this screen, the raw screen down, you can see there's a lot of repetitive stuff, but the raw screen is 3072 bytes, 3K exactly, which is the size of the highest graphics screen you could do in the MC10 without hardware modifications. The compressed version of that same data to draw that using the decompressor is 355 bytes. So it's almost 10 times smaller. So that's pretty decent compression. So he's actually got the decompressor working natively in 603 assembly language. So now you'll be able to load in some of the assets for the game a lot faster, especially if you're running off tape. Or if you want to make a game that's bigger, you don't have to keep loading parts in as you go. You could have the compressed data for some multiple screens at this very small size, and then you just decompress the one screen at a time you need as you progress through the game. So you can actually have everything preloaded, not taking so much RAM. So it has a lot of potential usage for a lot of people running MC10 code or Coco code if you're using the master version. Next up, now this is a working target in progress. So James Host, who I'm assuming is from Australia, has been uploading a ton of the Myco magazines. Now Nick Marentes probably knows much more about this than I. I don't think, Nick, you ever had an MC10, but you're probably familiar with Myco.
No, I don't have those magazines, but yeah, I do remember it. So
this was an MC10 only magazine, correct?
Yes, we call them MC10 the Myco.
Okay. Because that's something I don't think North America saw. I don't remember seeing an MC10 only magazine from anybody, not even like a newsletter style thing.
Yeah.
And like Rainbow had, sections of it for a while there in 83, 84. I think Color Computer Magazine or Hot Cocoa might have had its MC10 programs on occasion, but there was nothing ever dedicated to it. And this one actually ran for multiple issues over the course of a year or two. And he's been slowly uploading them to the MC10 Facebook group. So if any of you have MC10s and want to see some of the stuff that was published back then, they've just been dribbling in. Like as of my last check last night, and I think I noticed that there was another one uploaded this morning. He's uploaded issues 3, 5, and 6, which is December 83, February 83, February 84, and March of 84 to the Facebook group. And like I said, I think another one showed up today. So for those who have not seen the magazine, this is a sample one. This is the March 1984 one. You can see it's number 6, $3. Australian Myco, with one of the hardest to read cover pages I've ever seen. But yeah. And it's a decent size. Like these are the page numbers you're seeing here. And like this is over 60 pages of just MC10 content, which I don't think Rainbow ever put into a single issue. Editorial not having joysticks, so you actually learn the machine instead of just playing games all the time. But that was an interesting take. Now, this is actually one of the Rainbow magazine ads, except Michael Plug's one of their regular, or not ads, but columns, because Michael Plug was a regular contributor to Rainbow. So they did borrow some stuff. Now, Australian Coco, I think, also had a deal with Rainbow to publish. Yeah, so this was just kind of amalgamating MC10 related stories, but they had a lot of their own stuff in here too.
Yeah.
But 64 pages for an MC10
I know.
Per month. I never saw that here. I know I'm trying to think, like when the MC10 was first announced, there might have been 20 pages in the Rainbow for that. If you're lucky. So I was kind of impressed. Go ahead.
Where are these?
Oh, they're on the Facebook MC10 group right now.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if he's going to be uploading them to the Color Computer Archive. I hope he does, because I mean, some people just hate Facebook and will never touch it. But yeah, pretty huge magazine. You can see just pages and pages scrolling by here. So, and it looks like he's still uploading the rest of the issues. So hopefully we'll get the complete run up here. I don't know if you know, Nick, of how long this magazine lasted.
I don't remember. No, I never used to buy that one.
Okay.
Does it have program listings for people to type as well?
Yes.
Ah, what a messages. Giving people programs to type on an MC10.
Well, you got to remember that special key that if you hit another key, it punched in a whole keyword one shot. So actually it wasn't as much typing as the Coco needed, unless you bought like master key or something.
Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty cool. That's a bit of history I'd not seen before. I'd heard of it thanks to you, and I've seen ads for Myco, especially when Myco merged back into the Australian Rainbow or Australian Coco, whatever they called it.
Later, yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of like Hot Cocoa did, because 80 Micro, Wayne Green's publication for the TRS-80 Model 1, 2, 3, 4, et cetera, the black and whites. Basically had Coco content since the Coco was released, and it became so popular that they split it out and made Hot Coco magazine in 1983, and then I think it lasted till 86, and then it merged back into 80 Micro after that. And then 80 Micro kind of went out of the Tandy 1000s and died a horrible quick death after that, because there was so much competition for IBM PC compatibles with PC Mag and PC World and everything else that, that wasn't going to survive. But yeah, bit of Australian MC10 history there. And I can vouch that viewing these PDFs is not poisonous, so you should be able to survive reading them. Now, next up, we covered a Dragon demo that was done, and this one's a little bit different, but it's kind of similar to the one that was done. And there was a demo scene competition at a thing called Nova. Now, the demo scene's much bigger in Europe than it is here in North America, so I'm not super familiar with a lot of this stuff. But basically, it's trying to push the hardware of whatever computer you're trying to host the demo on to do all kinds of funky effects and stuff that you would think would be beyond the limits of the hardware. And so we've seen demos of this before. This was really popular on the Amiga and on the Atari ST and the Atari 8-bits and the Commodore 64 world. In fact, Simon Jonason, that's how he originally got involved with stuff, is he was doing demos on the Commodore 64 back in the day. Sockmaster is one of the few exceptions that did them in North America. He had multiple demos. Alen Dekok, we had on earlier, did a bouncing ball demo with 4-voice music and scrolling text in the background as a demo back in the late 80s himself, or 1990, I think he did this. So we've had some, but nowhere near as much. The Dragon, on the other hand, actually did get a fair bit of play, because like I said, this is a much more European phenomenon than it is a North American phenomenon. So this particular one here by Slipstream, I've got two versions of the video here. So one is actually recorded through a composite capture card, which is the one here. And then there's one here that's actually the live presentation filmed at Nova itself when people are judging them and deciding who the winner is going to be. I'm not going to play both because it's the same demo. Do you guys have a preference over watching the composite capture version or the live from the theater version?
Composite edition would be great, Curtis.
Composite? Okay. I'll kill that one. Back. Now, I will mention, because this confused me the first time I saw one of these demos, the music in the background does play during the real demo, but it's just streaming audio on from the cassette. So basically, the cassette loader loads up, and then it turns motor on, audio on, and they did originally compose the music. So, I mean, the demo writers did compose it. This is original score, but it's not using any hardware DAC tricks or anything like that to try to keep it up. It's just basically a graphics demo.
It's cheating.
Yeah, basically. That's the way I view it kind of myself, because it's more impressive if you can, squeeze that kind of sound out of the actual hardware built in, as opposed to pulling it off cassette. But it's just to have a nice background for some of the graphics. And I have to say, you can do some of these great, sound tricks like Stuart Orchard did on Return of the Beast, where he has that whole musical score playing it. I think Sixie actually helped write in the chat there. Karen wrote the sound routine for it, I remember, because it actually has percussion like drums and stuff. Like, it's really cool. But this is not one of those. But I'll just let it play, because we don't get to see demos too much here in North America. So I thought I'd play one for the Dragon 32. That shimmery effect is not part of the demo. That's just the composite capture card they used.
David Ladd on the cover.
I'm going to pause it here because I like this one line here.
Yeah,
describing the Motorola 6847 VDG, up to 256 by 192, up to 4 colors, 2 dodgy looking color palettes. That is the most accurate description
that was good.
of the color set on the VDG I've ever seen.
Nailed it.
Oh, sorry to David Lord in the chat who voted for the oohs and ahs of a live viewing. So, unfortunately, the other David beat you to the punch. That's a neat visual effect.
The dodgy palette.
And if you go watch the YouTube video directly, it's probably smoother than you're seeing on the live stream.
Yeah.
That's probably the only way those 4 colors look good.
Yes. Well, that's 8 colors in that, right?
Well,
That's a history and that.
This is using 11 colors, using color set 1, the orange and the dark red mixed with the standard 9.
Yeah.
That one actually got an ooh from the audience. I remember on the live one. Apparently there's a rotating sheep thing that was a theme at this particular Nova, so they do a dragon version of that.
I was waiting for that. The music does give it that demo
feel, yeah. Now I have to say that's not the most impressive dragon demo I've seen, though it's not bad. The rotating sheep looked pretty cool, and some of the graphical stuff at the beginning. I would like to see, and I've said this many times on the Coco stuff, but I would like to see some of these dragon people throw a 609 in a dragon and fire that sucker up for a demo. That's what I would like to see. So any of you listening out there, hint, hint, Karen, I'd like to see you guys kind of push that, because it was a period correct. I mean, the chip officially was on sale as of the fall of 1985. And it's got so much more power. Some of the effects you could do, some of the scrolling and stuff here, and some of the other, native mode, everything else here, you could pull off some stuff that would rival some of these other machines that have extra hardware assist for doing graphics and sound. So I'd love to see what you guys can pull off with that. So
it'd be good to see mixing colors by flashing between 2 colors to get a few more colors too.
Yeah, actually, like some of the techniques you've shown a year or two ago there, when you were kind of mixing stuff where you get a whole bunch of extra
colors. Yeah,
because some of those other 8-bit machines in the early 80s did not have the ability to double buffer. You only had one video screen to play with, so everything you had to do on there, whereas we actually could have multiple ones, as much as you had RAM for, basically.
Fake it with by flashing them.
Yeah. So there's definitely some more stuff you can do. Like there was that one we saw last year, I think had the semi-graphics flames using the alternate color set to get all the different oranges and reds. Like it had like 7 shades of something, of fire, and it actually looked really cool too. So yeah, I'd like to see some people like push that a bit more. The double buffering or triple buffering, quad buffering, whatever we want to use. And also 609, because it is, like I said, it is a period correct CPU. You saw earlier in the show here what it did for NitrOS9. Like you see the speed differences we got out of it. Can you imagine that doing dragon demos? Okay, next up, the Laird's Lair channel on YouTube does a look at issue 1 of the Retro Gamer Hardware Handbook, which is published by Future Publishing. This features over 20 years of classic computers and game consoles. They're kind of mixing up between them, between 1977 and 1999, which includes the Dragon 32. It also includes the Fairchild Channel F, which actually predates the Atari 2600. So I'm not going to play the whole video because he kind of does a quick review of the magazine and what its purpose is and goes through it page fairly quickly. He doesn't want you to like read the whole magazine online on the video, because they're trying to promote the magazine itself here. But the Dragon actually has its own little special page. Now, one of the features of this magazine is for each of the platforms that they're covering, they'll do what they consider to be the perfect 10 games that show off the system type thing that are, for that platform.
Cool.
So I'll pause it when we get there so you guys can kind of comment on the Dragon games they picked for that.
Manic Miner.
Okay, we'll take a little look at what the magazine's all about. I'm not going to sort of show you all of it. Leave something for when you actually pick it up so you can have a good read and check it out for yourself. But I'll just have a sort of quick flick through. You can see there the index, just a little bit of an overview of what's in it. Starts off with the console that started it all, really, the Fairchild Channel F, which some of you may know was the first console to use interchangeable, programmable.
And then
programmable cartridges before the Atari 2600, which is obviously which is quite often miscredited as the first one. It was actually the Fairchild Channel F. Grandstand did actually sell the machine in the UK, but it was pretty much unknown. It never got big sales figures. There wasn't a massive amount.
It has some of the weirdest controllers you've ever
released
seen.
for it, but
Yeah.
it goes through all of that. Then it goes into the Atari 2600, the first big boy with a nice little top 10, including a few of my favourites like Defender 2. Disappointed to see no Solaris, though. That should have had a place there. Goes into the Intellivision, sort of skips through from there. There's a nice section on Nintendo Game & Watches as well. That was, I thought, was a welcome addition to the magazine for all the Nintendo fans. And the Perfect 10 there. Computers, it goes to Spectrum, the ZX81, the BBC. Even the Dragon 32 gets a look in.
So I'll just back it up a bit here.
Good, they show the guts of the machines.
Yeah. Looks to be a pretty good magazine.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the top 10 games they got listed here. So they got Chucky Egg, which actually, when we had our Dragon special, was overwhelmingly the favorite of everybody that grew up with the Dragon.
And that's why it's number one on the list there.
Yeah. Jet Set Willie came in at number 2. Donkey King came in at number 3. And that's the black and white Donkey King. Or in this case, actually, if you see the lower left corner, the green screen version, which is horrible looking.
Yeah.
Devil Assault, Rommel's Revenge, which was a Battlezone clone that actually is better than the one we saw in North America called Rommel 3D. Leggett, Grid Runner, Backtrack, which is one that really impressed me because the 3D effects there of walking through the rooms where the roof scrolls at a different speed than the ground, that just looked really impressive to me. And the game, actually, once you get into it, it's kind of fun. The Ket Trilogy and Airball, which is one of the most frustrating games known to man. And any thoughts on the ones they've picked here? Is there other Dragon games that, or Coco 1 and 2 level games that you would rank above some of these yourselves?
Well, Sailor Man, but
yeah, I agree.
I don't know if they got it back then in the UK.
Yeah, Tomix did sell, like Microdata had to deal with Tomix. They sold a lot of that stuff. I can't remember. And Karen, if you're in the chat still, maybe let me know. I don't remember if they published that one. And Tim Franklin, I actually do have a YouTube ad blocker on there, but YouTube changed something recently and it broke. And I did download an update and it hasn't fixed it yet. So and David Lord says, please don't include Donkey Monkey. But yeah, I mean, like Backtrack for me, that's the standout one here. That was visually impressive. And like I said, also a fun game. Steve Rasmussen, Buck Owen says Donut Dilemma. I don't know why he's doing that. Must have been paid.
Yeah, I don't think they got that one. Was Chucky Egg is a good one.
Was Cashman a good game?
I think so. And that one was sold there. Time Bad and
Oh,
Cashman, I remember, were sold, I think.
I hear Math Tutor was a blast.
Tom Eric said Sailor Man wasn't for the Dragon, so apparently that's one of the Tomix ones they did not port across.
Scripsit? Did they get Scripsit?
I hope they didn't inflict that on anybody.
Yeah,
I know the Dragon had much better word processors than Scripsit.
Yeah.
Probably in BASIC.
Yeah.
But anyway, for those of you that are general arcade retro fans, or not arcade, but home console and home computer fans, and want a European UK slant on it, because most of the machines they're picking are the ones that were sold there, including some that were never sold here. This looks like a pretty good magazine. I mean, they go into the hardware details, they go into a bit of history of the machine, and then they pick the top 10 for each of them too. And that would be just an interesting read on all of its own, personally. And Exile in Paradise, Robert Allen Murphy says, no Daggerath, no deal. Now that's true. I don't know why they didn't port Daggerath to the Dragon. It's perfect. It's a 2-color game. That's exactly what the graphics mode of the Dragon does.
But Daggerath was a cartridge sold by Tandy.
Yeah, but I mean, they sold cartridge games to the Dragon too. I mean, some of the Tandy ones were actually working on both.
All right.
I wonder if does that one work on the Dragon? I wonder.
The code will work, I'm pretty sure. Dragon 32 for sure. I mean, because some of the interrupt changes on the 64.
Keyboard controls.
Yeah, but that's not much patching.
Yeah, but that's just it. Is there a patched version of Daggerath?
So for those of you in the UK in the chat, they're like Tom and Kieran, etc. Did you guys ever get a port of Daggerath to the Dragon? And if not, then why doesn't one of you get on that?
And why not?
Because that is, I mean, that was good enough to include it in a recent book, Ready Player One. So
all the software here is third-party software, so I doubt they were looking at Tandy official games.
Well, this is Dragon. This isn't Tandy.
That's what I mean. They probably didn't put a Tandy cartridge there. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Microdeal sold both for the Dragon and the Coco, and they will cross-license a lot of stuff from Spectral, Computerware,
yeah, they wouldn't be able to cross-license Daggerath.
They might have in the UK, because Britain did sell, like some of the Tandy stores sold stuff that actually said for the Dragon.
Oh, okay.
They were much more open-minded to it than North America was. Well, even Australia. I mean, they were selling, Australian-produced software that never saw the light of day here or in the UK or Europe.
Later on.
This is the other way around, though. This is Tandy-owned software, and how do you get that pride out of Tandy's hands?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think if I can think of any Tandy stuff that was made by Tandy in North America that got sold for the Dragon, and maybe that's true. Tandy did sell third-party stuff in the UK, though. Like, they did sell Microdeal things and stuff, so that's maybe what I'm thinking of. No, Tom's saying no Daggerath for the Dragon either. They really need to port that. Karen, get on it. And then my last one here, kind of a bit of quirky one. So this is a YouTuber named Dmitry Simlyansky. He's Russian speaking. I don't know if he's from Russia or from one of the Russian speaking countries in the Baltics, etc. But he basically got a mail call here, and he did a 30-minute video of bags and boxes full of stuff he got from, I'm not sure where, but it's game cartridges, it's joystick controllers, there's some actual computers and consoles, etc. But one that kind of caught my eye when I watched it here, and because it showed up as a search phrase for the Dragon, is a modern joystick for the Dragon that he actually got. So I've got the English translation showing up here. So I'll just let him talk about it very briefly.
Вот он джойстик для Dragon 32. Алтай какой-то. Special джойстик для Dragon, да. For Dragon
Switch mode.
Блин, такая современная обложка, упаковка для супер древнего компа. Ну,
I wonder if that's a switch mode or a.
Такой вот красивый симпатяж, особо никем не юзанный, выглядит круто, классно. Ну, будешь дополнять коллекцию.
Anyway, it looks like a pretty decent quality joystick. You got your choice, the fire button on the top for the pistol grip, or on the side, more like a traditional. You got the suction cups to hold it on the table, so if you're getting ready to throw it across the room from trying to play Crash, it might save your joystick.
I reckon it's a switch mode joystick.
Yeah, there was another one he did in the video that was another one that you saw briefly on the table as he's going by his actual Dragon. That one for sure is a switch joystick, because he actually mentioned that it's an Atari converted to a Dragon style thing.
Yeah.
This one, I'm not sure if this is actually analog with spring back, self-centering or not.
Oh, right.
But I've actually seen, we've covered this about a year or two ago. People had boxes showing this one. But I'd never actually seen the actual joystick pulled out and shown. So I wanted to show the video to kind of show what that looked like.
So is this really like a European thing? The joysticks all have 7 fire buttons, but it's all the same one? Because
maybe
I've seen several of those, and yeah, there's like 4 fire buttons on the base and a couple on the handle. That's all the one fire button, but you always have a lot of them. It's
and
nice.
Is that a switch on the front of the joystick that allows you to choose the button on the top or the button on the bottom?
I don't know.
On the Dragon, you can only have one button.
Yeah. I would assume that that's not a switch unless it's a generic thing for multiple platforms, and that both buttons would be enabled at all times. But
I've seen and used several joysticks that are like that. All of the buttons work, and you have to be careful not to accidentally.
Yeah.
Well, even the Tandy pistol grip one, which works on the Coco or the Tandy 1000, does have both buttons enabled at the same time.
Right.
So I have one. I've used it a fair bit. All right, that was kind of interesting. And that's it for the news.
Okay.
And don't forget to post the links in the Discord channel.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I kind of rushed that in. I kind of forgot.
Exactly. And you're going to be busy afterwards. So don't forget.
I'm going to be. Should be right now, actually. But, this is more important than work. I was going to say, but probably don't want to throw in another commercial in here, but project updates and acquisitions. I know, Rick, you have one that we talked about in the pre-show, but we should probably show on the show.
Oh, sure. Should I just throw that up?
Yeah. Sure, go ahead.
So anyway, that keyboard, I've been promising a little switch that hangs out at the bottom for all these years. Can you
zoom up the screen there, Mark?
Zoom me up or something? I can't see myself. So anyway, the idea was going to be there's a little switch that extends out the bottom for your Coco 2 or 3 modes on my key on. You'd think I'd have this ready by now. So the key fix adapter that I've been selling can be switched between Coco 2 and 3 modes, and the switch should reach out the bottom like this. And I have finally built that gizmo. And here is that gizmo, which slides on the bottom of it. If you bought your keyboard off of the website, you'll just get one in the mail. And you just pop it on the side, and now you can run your Coco from the bottom. If you got it at the Coco Fest, I don't know where you are. So if you could send an email to rick@computerconnect1n.com, then I will be able to send you the little handle, and you won't have to reach in with a screwdriver or something ugly to flip your keyboard around. And that's basically all I had. Printer's printing.
Yeah, I'll definitely. Do you have my address ready? Because if not, I'll send that to you later today.
Postal, I have no idea. So
just send it anyway.
Just shoot it to me, and that way I won't.
You'll want to cut and paste it anyway, because trying to spell it.
Hey, when I bought my ZX, I learned the postal codes are different. So in England, it's one is number, letter through the 6-digit code, and the other one is letter through the 6-digit code. And anyway, the bright guy at the Carrollton Post Office decided I had done it wrong and sent my return ZX81 to Canada. And so I got it back 6 months later, squashed flat. None of the work had been done, and I still had my money order for 20 pounds. So I cashed the money order, and looking at the thing again, I figured out my mistake, fixed it, and then I had a computer, my first computer. So except for the one I did at high school. So anyway, that's my story on postal codes in Canada.
Yeah, Canada, we were letter number.
Right, they zigzagged.
Okay,
except Ken, where he is, it's tin cans and string.
His address is 3.
Yeah, third tree from the left.
Actually, my address is 6. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Your phone number's 3. I forgot. Sorry.
So Rocky Hill is asking if there's an STL file for that adapter.
I can send you one because I've got it. Just ask and I will. I guess I could put it somewhere. I'll do that too.
Yeah, for those who want to print them themselves, it'll save you the shipping. So,
well, yeah, the shipping is going to be what, 42 cents or whatever stamp. I don't know what a stamp is nowadays.
I think 60 something now.
Yeah, it's over 60.
Oh, really? Man, I should have bought more forever stamps.
Yeah, I know. A couple of years ago, I bought like 3 or 4 rolls of the forever stamps. So good for a while for bills.
Yeah. Anything else?
Anybody else have any project updates, acquisitions, or a Ron's Garage special or something?
Yeah, Ron's Garage. 2 things.
Okay.
Share?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Let's see.
Take a minute. I gotta hit the restroom.
Is it sharing?
Yep.
Okay.
Looks like a Vectrix plate.
It is. It's a Vectrix eliminator or emulator.
You're trying to wreck all the vectors is left.
Yeah, really. So it depending on the computer you have will depend on whether you get these emulated brighter. You know what I mean? Because I guess it's a function of your graphics card, and you have to have what is that? I can't think of the name of the stuff you have to have on your computer for it to work. Anyway, there's that. And then there's this. Has anybody seen this yet? It's on Netflix. It's called High Score. And
yes, actually, this is a mini series that came out last year, I think, or 2 years ago or something.
The Vectrix is in it. So check it out sometime. It's pretty cool. Goes all the way through the history of video games. It has the originators of all the different games and the software, stories about how they wrote the software and how, remember the crash we talked about last time?
Yeah, the great video game crash of '83.
Yeah, they explain how, I guess it was based on it was not Star Wars, the little
E.T.
E.T. guy. Yeah. Well, the guy that made it crash was on there. It was interesting to watch him. And that's about it, I guess. I have to find where I put stop share.
Also, I got notified. I forgot to play something from the Taylor and Amy show they wanted me to play from the end of their video. So if anybody else has anything else to talk about first, I got to bring it back up.
Go to Ron's Garage and look at all
Ken just gave me heck for that too. Thanks, Ken.
You went through all the trouble of finding their coconuts and you forgot to play it.
His coconuts are always dropping.
Why did we let David on the show again? I can't remember. Was there anything interesting on Ron's Garage on your page there, Ron, this week?
Well, it was just, the latest pictures I've taken. I did the latest new electric Dodge Charger. Anybody seen that yet? It's coming out in 2024.
No.
It's called
All electric?
Yeah. It's supposed to be faster than a Hellcat.
Yep. Torque off the line.
It's only got a 30-mile range, though. Just kidding.
As long as they can get the extension cord.
Yeah, it's got one of those 5-inchers.
Is it a petrol car or an electric?
Electric.
All right.
Electric.
It's the new rage. Because America likes hot rods that are fast red light to red light, and electric cars are great at that. I mean,
yeah, not only that, but
everything.
This particular car has sound.
Oh yeah, they're making it
They
engine.
added sound
They
to it.
didn't cross the cable to get that odd sound.
Didn't
No, I'm
have
just
to.
kidding.
They have
60 hertz squeal.
no. It's their Hellcat sound reproduced on the car.
Oh, it's a
They use
sound.
they use an answering machine loop tape.
Anyway, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to start this clip, so I'm just going to play the last couple 2.5 minutes or whatever of the video here, which includes a shout out on the coconuts and kind of a little bit of a summary of what happened here. So let me just share again. My apologies for missing that earlier.
I got on eBay. I was about to buy another MC10. Like, I thought, I've broken it. Something I did when I took the RF shield, or the RF box out, I must have done something. I could not find a broken trace, anything that I could bodge with the wire. I just, this was a real blow to my self-esteem, and now it's working. Because I hadn't broken anything. Nope. I hadn't bridged the solder joints. I had not unseated the chip.
But you did it right a few times. Probably.
I actually broke it some worse trying to fix it. Typical.
That's okay.
Like at one point, I took the chip out. It's a little Motorola 1387, some terrible year, and broke one of the legs off. So I soldered a new leg on. I'm like, this is good. This will help.
Make work.
Yeah. Anyway, yay MC10. Yay AV mod. Yay new soldering iron.
Yeah.
Thanks to Dr. Jeff. And because L. Curtis Boyle is a friend of the channel, there's a pretty good chance that he'll feature this video on this week's CoCoTALK. So shout out to the coconuts.
Coco!
Hey! Oh, we forgot our coconuts. Hold, please.
Good, Steve.
Pretend there's something in it. Delicious.
They're never far away.
So, like and subscribe.
Yes.
For more Taylor's troubleshooting
of whatever this is.
Yeah, we filmed a lot lot of that too. Not the oscilloscope part. That was me
Yeah, I
in the
didn't even
middle
get
of
to
the
see
night.
that.
Just
I can't believe you broke
I
that
couldn't
oscilloscope.
sleep.
I know.
was
I know.
so-
When I left here, she was. It was bad because I had to leave because I had work the next day where I have just actually come from work.
Yeah, and then as soon as I swap the thing, then I go bop, and it goes. I was just like, I was so happy.
And I got that early enough I could come over. We can have a video.
Yay!
Yes, it was good. But yeah, so like, subscribe, comment, merch if you want it. T-shirts are pretty cool.
Send us mail.
Yeah, mail-in address under about for our expert modding.
And may the force be with you.
Anyway, thanks for the shout out. And I understand fully because like I explained with the tale with Bill there about getting to plug in the power.
I hope they don't just put it on the shelf now and never see it again. You know.
No, they actively go through their machines as they go, especially when they got little hardware upgrades and stuff to do. So, or maybe sometimes do software's release. So I'm imagining the MC10 and the Coco 1 and 2 will make another appearance sometime in the not too distant future.
Cool. We have a term that's called technician-induced failure.
That would be my autobiography if I did hardware.
All right. Is that about it? Is that about it for the show?
I think so. I think unless Nick's got an update on Jump and Joy he wants to talk about.
No,
nothing. Yeah, you've been kind of busy with other stuff lately too, just like me.
All right, everybody, it's good to see you, and thank you for joining us.
I think Dave's pulling the plug.
That's
Here's
it.
here's the outro.
All the viewers have gone now.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer, MC10, and Dragon systems. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at cocotalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTALk@cocotalk.live. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, CoCoTALK.live. CoCoTALK would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Alan Murphy, Amigos Retro Gaming, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Weaver, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, George Jansen, Grant Leedy, James Diffendapper, Jason Reichert, Jim Brain, Ken Reichert, Ken Waters, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marentes, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many, many more. Please help support the Coco community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's IMACOCONUT.com. The original CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. Coco forever!
And we're back.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
Well, I got, as we kind of announced at the beginning of the show here, neither Nick nor I have heard anything from Michael Duncan in the last almost 2 weeks now. So we were supposed to try to record his interview this weekend. Does not look like that's happening. I don't know if he got busy, just hadn't had a chance to respond because we sent him multiple emails. I'm hoping that he just got busy and we can reschedule it and that it's not a complete fall through.
May have heard David Ladd's on the show.
Could be. But at any rate, September 3rd, we still have Dave Dyes of DICOM. We haven't done the test call yet, but that's getting arranged. I'm expecting that one to be a long one because there's a long history with him publishing multiple games before he created DICOM. And then, of course, he sold stuff on behalf of others and was good friends with Glenn Dahlgren of Sundog. Glenn's going to try to be on that show, at least for part of it, to ask some questions as well to help interview. And I think Tim Linder wants to pop by for that one too, because Tim's done some, write-ups of some of the hardware that Dave did, because Dave did the RAT mouse adapter for PC mice. He also did the Sega Master System light gun adapter as well for games like Medieval Madness and Iron Forest. So look forward to that on the 3rd. September 17th, we've got the full interview with Frank Linares of Retro Rewind, going into his days on Tech TV and G4, etc. Working with Leo Laporte and some of the other people there, and a bunch of the
all
others,
his
like Kevin
secret
Rose.
life.
Yeah, his out in public secret life. There's a couple more interviews we're trying to line up right now. One of them might be on September 10th, but might not. Hopefully we'll get this straightened out in the next week or so here. There's another one that's going to be a group interview. It sounds like 2 of them are now on board of doing it. No firm date. We're trying to get a hold of a 3rd. That one might have to be an off normal time one though, because one of the people involved there usually works weekends, so wouldn't be able to do the live show on the weekend. So that might have to be recording in an evening or something. We could do it live so people can still get involved and ask questions, etc. But it'll kind of like be a separate thing, and then we'll merge it together for the podcast version. So I'll keep you guys posted once we hear on those 2 to hopefully get them confirmed sometime in September, maybe into October, depending. But there's some pretty exciting ones which we're trying to get a hold of. I'm really looking for the Dave Dyes one though, because Bill and I actually knew Dave fairly well from seeing him at Rainbow Fest multiple years in a row. And he's got some pretty interesting stuff, including some stuff that has not been really too publicly talked about before. So,
cool. All right, Dave, send us out.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe and wait for our next episodes.
And try the fish.
Don't try the elevator.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
See you all next week.
Later.